Welcome back to the home studio and welcome to this WrestleMania 41 special here at the Stevie Richards Show. Can I say it like Vince? Welcome to WrestleMania, the special. And my special co-host, I mean that was a compliment, by the way, is James Romero. How are you feeling, James?
Well, better today. Yeah, I just felt like death yesterday, and we were like, "Oh, we're gonna do this." But yeah, do you know what? It's WrestleMania. WrestleMania's in the books both nights, both days, I guess, because it was in Vegas and therefore on West Coast time. So was it like a lot earlier for you?
For me, no, I'm on the East Coast, so it's 3 hours behind me. So 7 p.m. here is 4 p.m. there.
So when did it start for you? What time?
I think around 7 p.m. Eastern time. I think they started the pay-per-view early over there because most times, like when they did it from Levi's Stadium in California or anything on the West Coast, the outdoors, they have that sunset. It was kind of that infamous or famous shot when Sting was coming out. The sun started to set. It's just like his chances of beating Triple H, the Terminator. Thank God Hunter's moved on and he's become more humble and hasn't featured himself too much since that WrestleMania.
Just, we have to mention Sting very briefly. He was at WrestleCon this weekend. There was a consideration that I was going to go, a less consideration you were going to go, but, it wasn't entirely off the table until later on. But apparently Sting was doing the Wolfpack thing, right? So have you seen Sting recently? He's face painted up, but he's now got a very long goatee like a goat, like an actual goat. But then I saw a photo of him with the lobster Sting red face paint from the Wolfpack days. He looks ridiculous.
But he's got the long ZZ Top starter beard, right? That type of thing I've seen.
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, so it's sort of like down to there, and he's painted it all red. His head looks like a canoe. It's like really just long and red.
Yeah, I mean, he got booked as an NWO Sting, Wolfpack Sting, probably got a ton of money for that. Maybe he could have done the old, I think Godfather did it one time, and I did it once, where this hour to this hour was this character, and then it switched over, or day one and day two. So it's smart. I mean, use everything you can. I mean, Crow Sting probably doing a bunch of appearances, so why not Wolfpack Sting? Maybe without the beard, though.
No, the Wolfpack Sting's fine. It's just, I don't know why he's grown such a long beard. Like, because apparently he's not painting his face anymore. After this year, he's only going to do, like, non-in-character appearances, I guess, or, at least, without the face paint.
Let me ask you a question about that.
Can you not just hold off one more year?
Do you think he's going to wrestle again? Maybe one last WWE match, or you think he's really done?
Nah, I think he's probably done in his mid-60s now. He's made millions. I mean, I know he didn't have a tan, and that's why he didn't, that's why they messed him around on that world champion. Did you hear that?
Yeah, Hogan with the big eyes going, brother, he doesn't even have a tan.
That was face paint, that wasn't his skin.
I know. You're going to tan, and then you're going to put white face paint over and wear gloves and a trench coat. Okay.
It's like, who cares, man? Anyway, somehow that ended up, well, you know what Hogan's like. Right, so, as we say, this is WrestleMania special episode. We're not going to be talking about, I guess, anything else pretty much apart from WrestleMania, apart from one thing. One match, two matches change, actually, in fairness. There was Randy Orton, what was supposed to be Kevin Owens, and then there was a mystery opponent. But beforehand, before we get to that, it was going to be El Grande Americano, Chad Gable, versus Rey Mysterio. But on WWE SmackDown, the most minor of physicality ended up keeping Rey off the show, and it may keep him out of wrestling for, it could be months at this point. You've got the video, so Stevie, honestly, what went wrong? So I can't see what went wrong at all.
Thank you very much, James. And first and foremost, and most importantly, my heart goes out to Rey Mysterio. Every wrestler, WWE or not, whether you're not in WWE or you're currently in WWE, your goal is to be in a WrestleMania match, and your ultimate goal is to be in one of the WrestleMania main events. So the fact that Rey, who is working and wrestling like he better than he ever has, so he gets better and he still does the same stuff. That's why it's so heartbreaking, because like you said, you want me to figure out what went wrong. This kind of spot, which we're going to see in a second, is done probably a million times. It's just a pull-out spot where Rey would take a little bit of a face bump or some kind of bump and sell off of a heat spot, a breakup off a pin. We even seen Travis Scott pull the referee out. The same exact thing that happened to Rey Mysterio in this particular spot, only just a freak occurrence. But there will be a rant an overarching theme that I'm totally against, and you could probably figure out why. I'm totally against doing any type of wrestling like the week of WrestleMania or even further back. You can have other talents wrestle, but the people you have on the pay-per-view, here I start with the rant already. I'm front-ending it. But why are you not protecting the talent? It's bad enough Elimination Chamber. It's so close to WrestleMania, and that is a real shoot cage that can injure everybody. And you're going into that like pretty much worn down. You come off how many international shows, James? Did they come off just before or after that? It's crazy.
I don't know. There were tours beforehand. There's going to be tours afterwards. They're going to be back in Paris in like June or July, I think, as well. So they're actually ramping up European tours as well. So that's a lot of flight time people are getting.
Well, the thing with the WrestleMania Revenge Tour, you kind of got WrestleMania Revenge yesterday when you got sick, but the WrestleMania Revenge Tour is always an international thing. Maybe not right after you still have your TV tapings or live TVs, but the reason they would go overseas after WrestleMania is because the American market was depleted, especially WrestleMania weekend. So the international market, anytime business was down or predicted at a certain time to be down, we go overseas for a week or two. It's a smart business move, but that's why, and I didn't explain it on a past episode, that's why it confused me why they were going before WrestleMania, wearing the talent down, having a very physical elimination chamber pay-per-view, which actually was pretty memorable and notable if you think about it, almost in a way more notable than WrestleMania with some of the things that came out of it. So let's go to the injury. This is the most important part, but I will get back to my mini rant. And one of the Creed brothers, to me, that looked very much, and I'll go with slow-mo with this. All I can think of is this pole has sort of a rotation. If you see how it goes slow, usually Ray would take a face bump straight down and just do it like that, like he does that sliding splash, which by the way, he's done that a million times. And you think you slam your knees against the edge of the apron, slide, and then do a splash on the floor. This is nothing close to that, but I do know once he rolls over and sells by not selling, just saying right there, that's where he grabs that part of his body as we look.
How quickly is it, would you realize as a talent that Ray is hurt?
I don't think anybody realized it until Ray wasn't getting up. Ray wasn't going into the corner as part of this 6-man tag. And then obviously I have another camera angle where there's the overhead Wile E. Coyote shot. Ray is not getting up. He's leaning against the announce table right here, and he is not getting up. And then obviously it's going to be with the trainers, with all the personnel that come out, the emergency medical personnel, before he goes to a local medical facility. I don't know if they said that or a hospital, but he's grabbing right there. And then this is the part right here. He's still just down. And there's no doubt that Rey Mysterio has probably figured into a lot more of this match after this what went wrong. But it's so weird. And this is where I'm going to get to this, because something like this, it can happen anytime. Like I said, most of the injuries just happen in freak occurrences. They are not like the real violence, or the real injury usually looks a lot less impactful and less violent than the actual pro wrestling big bumps, big moves. But I am totally against. I wish there was a way after Elimination Chamber to start putting more storylines, vignettes, working out the road to the journey, much like the people love the Bret versus Shawn like documentary. Like Bret was really miserable and looking out there and sad, and Shawn was all inspired to fulfill the childhood dream at WrestleMania 12. Why are they not telling stories and making movie-like trailers going at least into the last 3 to 4 weeks? And that way this talent is protected. You can work out, injuries can heal, you're banged up all year round because there's no off season. And at the same time, you're able to really prepare to put everything into the match. Because let's talk about WrestleMania. Everybody shoots on each other. Everybody hits each other much harder, and they hit each other harder year round in 2024, 25, and even previous to that. So you're already worn down. So that 3 to 4 week break is almost like kind of before a season finale, which WrestleMania is kind of a season finale for the WWE calendar year, then new business starts the next night on Raw. At least that's the way it used to be. So we have to see what happens as we're recording this Monday morning. But what do you think? I think it's just you're trying to provide these pay-per-view level matches, and we're going to get into that, my theory about how WrestleMania didn't feel as special as it should. You get into these very physical pay-per-view paced, impactful, and also intense matches just before the big pay-per-views. What if this was Cody? What if it was Cena? What if it was somebody that's figured it? What was Punk, Rollins, and Reigns, and all three guys got hurt? What do you do then? I mean, what are your thoughts about them wrestling? Literally, this was taped. Was this live or taped? I'm sorry.
I thought it was live.
I think it's live before the Hall of Fame. Even if it's taped.
Yes, it was. It was because the Hall of Fame started at silly o'clock as well.
Okay. So even if you taped it Monday or Tuesday, like they used to do sometimes, they would do the taping and then it would air on Friday anyway when I was with WWE. But man, you are taking a horrible chance on everybody being hurt the night before the Saturday show, or for Sunday. 2 days is not enough time to recover. So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, in fairness to WWE, CM Punk hadn't wrestled until since the end of March. Cody Rhodes only wrestled once, and I think that was a dark match with Solo Sikoa. Two dark matches. He hadn't actually wrestled since the 23rd of March. Roman Reigns just never wrestles. For the main guys, they did do that for the most part. So I don't think WWE warrants too much criticism. And this was a 6-man. There was very little going to be happening with every person. I think it's one of those freak things. I want to ask you this. Ray is a bit more brittle, in fairness. He's had many, many knee surgeries and other injuries going on, and he's sort of quite well known for, taking long stretches off for injury, that kind of thing. Do you think it works against all of the talent because of how little they wrestle now comparative to how they used to some years ago?
Well, that's the trick. I wouldn't even say wrestle. I would say work. They are wrestling. They're wrestling very physical matches. They're putting everything in every match. So I'm not putting the talent down for when you're at a house show or you're doing this live TV like we're talking about with SmackDown. Even the night before WrestleMania, everybody works hard. Every single guy, every single girl works hard. And I think the theme of this special review show for WrestleMania 41 is really going to be, most of our criticism is going to be on creative. The build up, what they're doing, maybe some of the finishes. But yeah, that's the tightrope. That's a literal tightrope to see. If you don't wrestle enough and you're rusty, Cena was very apparently not wrestling very often up until this match, and it showed a little bit. We'll get into a full review of that match. But also at the same time, if you wrestle too much, what's going to happen? Do I have the answer? I think you just need to look at each individual talent and see who can go. I always thought leading into the WrestleMania kind of month, it's a chance to really bring more new talent up and maybe try some NXT people out and see who can be good to go after WrestleMania in case there's injuries or anybody needs some time off or anything like that. You get a fresh coat of paint on that. So that month leading up to it could be some themed thing. As you're promoting WrestleMania, we're also going to have rookies matches and other NXT stuff really featured. You get the content, the kids get the experience, the talent that needs that time off. And by the way, they're doing house shows during that month, the 2 months too. They can get in there and roll around and work up a sweat and have a little bit of fun going into that. It's a little bit more loose still on the house shows, but that month leading up to it, man, I'm telling you, this is going to happen more often than people think in the future.
I think the shows were boring enough with the stars on them. I think we needed to get some people on. We won't harp on this too long. We have to move on. But just to explain, it was not a leg injury that was initially guessed, I guess. It was actually a groin injury, the nature of which we don't quite know the severity of, whether it's a pull or a strain or
why. I would have
else.
guessed it was. Not to interrupt you, I would have guessed it was. And as we bring it back up here, this was definitely that last grab that Ray did. That's what I thought. Right here, it's a groin injury.
Yeah, because he's grabbing at the. Is he grabbing at the back of his leg there, or is he?
No, he's grabbing the inside thigh.
He's grabbing the front.
He's definitely, I thought, groin or some kind of leg ligament on that inside going down into like, or he could have. The impact was very weird. The pull was not like anything egregious, where it didn't look like he got caught off guard. It was just maybe that little twist instead of taking the face bump that Ray's used to. Because we'll go back to it just very quickly here. And you can see when he gets pulled, you see what I mean? Usually right there, and he even grabbed the ring apron a little bit. It really weird. I think the tear happened right there. Like when his heel lands.
When his heel lands. Yeah, his heel lands, yeah.
Yeah. When the heel lands and a little bit sideways, like to right here, that's because with the leg, you see how the leg is now in this direction right here? That could have popped the groin right there. Just that little leg outside. When the heel hits, it's jammed up, and then the knee goes slightly to the right. It could have been the impact and like a 2-stage injury. Heel hits, groin could have popped right there. But then the leg goes sideways and the groin goes outside. You've pulled your groin too. I mean, I have. It's not something, like I said, all you got to do is graze it. But for a groin pull, dude, that's like spraining your ankle too. A groin pull is essentially going to take longer than breaking a bone sometimes. It's a nagging injury, and I have no doubt he can fight through it. But playing devil's advocate as well, you hit a wall. You never know when the wall is going to hit you when in regards to a bump card, injuries, like you said, brittleness, recovery. Ray has already had the stem cells, which has been kind of a miraculous thing how many years ago did he get that? And he's been back. He wasn't supposed to wrestle. He was out with that knee injury for about a year, maybe more, but he had that stem cell therapy and he came back better than ever. I don't know if you can get that therapy again and recover, or if it's just a matter of, like I said, every wrestler eventually hits that wall, and maybe Ray will be able to wrestle, but he might be very limited from something as innocuous as just getting pulled out of the ring and a groin injury. Stranger things have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, stranger things have been constructed as well, Stevie. So you sent me this. Triple H, they unveiled it to him as well. Like, it was almost like, I don't know if you remember the Cristiano Ronaldo statue, the bust that was revealed of him. It was the worst bust in all of human history. And then Ronaldo just has to stand there and goes, hee, isn't this great? And then Triple H, he sort of had the same thing. There was a waxwork statue of him unveiled, sort of at the red carpety bit of the Hall of Fame, I guess. Okay, what did it actually look like? 'Cause it didn't seem to resemble Triple H in any way.
Well, it's funny enough, my wife and I just watched Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And when the guy, the American that sends Indiana Jones and his father, Henry Jones, to get the Holy Grail, and he grabs the fanciest Holy Grail, which obviously the most humble looking cup chalice is the Holy Grail, but he grabs the fanciest one with the gold and the jewels. He drinks it, and then he starts melting. And about mid-melt, it was like all he had to do was to point. That was the end right there. It was truly horrifying.
Penitent man kneels before God. Right, I just had to get the impression out. But here's the thing with The Last Crusade, is that Indiana Jones is completely superfluous to that story. Completely. Yeah. He doesn't need to be in it. Because the Nazis or whoever else are going there, no, he isn't a Nazi, but he works with them. He would have eventually got there if he had. If he hadn't, he would have just died and been killed, and that would have been the end of the story. But even if he had got to the Holy Grail, he still would have picked the wrong one, and then still would have died, and that would have been the end of the story. Indiana Jones has no effect on the outcome.
So Harrison Ford is one of the greatest workers that ever lived.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, Sean Connery's better, though.
It was still an excellent movie. Temple of Doom, The Last Crusade. What's that?
Love it. Oh, Junior.
Yeah. Don't call me Junior. Well, guess what? This guy, Hunter's statue drank the wrong Holy Grail chalice before this. I want everybody out there, because I thought about this. If Chris can do it, we're turning this around quickly. So for not now, somebody needs to Photoshop the Triple H statue finally getting some well-deserved rest. Put it in a bed, an Airbnb, red light therapy, try to get the eye bags down. It was like
red light therapy, that melt it for good. Have you ever seen like these Eastern European attempts at like waxwork? Wax museums or whatever, and they're like the saddest thing in the world. That sort of belonged with them.
Yeah.
And I wish I had an example to give you, but I think they do it on the Grand Tour.
Cake. This is much better than the Ronaldo one as far as being worse. This may be the worst.
Did you check that out when I mentioned it?
I have to. No, not yet, but I can assume.
Right, you Google that while I say something else then. So, Tommaso Ciampa, right? He is also, I don't think he was on WrestleMania, but he turned up on the red carpet with a shaved beard because the explanation was that he had a cut on his chin and therefore he had to like have stitches or something and he had to shave the beard. So he looked weird without the beard. But I got more of a theory that he shaved the beard so he didn't have to look like that waxwork statue. Stevie, can you find it?
That's the one.
That's outrageous, isn't it?
Triple H's is still worse. You know, Ronaldo, I mean, are his teeth really that jacked up?
I don't think his eyes are that sort of misaligned.
He looks like me after I forgot to duck Rob Van Dam's front kick. My one cheekbone it looks like one side is like, I got bit by, I'm Macaulay Culkin and My Girl got bit by the bees, stung by the bees. And the other part looks like he's fasting. He's got, it's the Incredible Hulk.
Weird.
It's the Incredible Hulk with the split face.
It's the thing where like they do debut it in front of you in front of a crowd, and all you can say is, "Oh, look at that's look at that
you.
suit's good.
Look at you.
You got the suit right."
Oh, I don't have a statue.
Hey, you never know. For 150,000 subs, you never know what YouTube.
You know when I posted that nightmare fuel to our YouTube community post, I actually had some people saying after looking at that I'm jealous I don't have a statue of like he does. I was like, yeah. No, that's fine. And who do you think that person is going to be commissioned next year for another statue?
I think he'll be shot in front of his family. Nick Khan's got a lot of sway. I think that'll be... let's get to Triple H now, because I know you want to talk about this. Triple H gets a lot of plaudits, and rightly so, for the most part, anyway, after taking Vince McMahon, the man's spot as far as the head of creative, pretty much from, 2022, mid-2022, or whatever it was, or mid-2023, I can't remember. But I think you still maintain the contention that Triple H is absolutely a total mark for himself still. And there are many examples. We won't talk about the Hall of Fame Bret Hart thing until later, but aside from that, he was all over the show.
Yeah, it's a very weird thing. And I really do like the fact that they have Shawn Michaels come out, announce the attendance. I mean, it still felt like they were trying to fill time on a pay-per-view. It felt very much like stretching some stuff out. And then Austin coming out the next night and announcing the attendance as well. We'll get into the ATV accident later on as well. But yeah, it's just one of those things. It just reminds me of like, I'll say this about Triple H, and comparing him to a Money Mark promoter. The Money Mark promoter only makes one belt for themselves and not 4 to 5 or how many eras. Are they cool belts? Of course they are. But my goodness, it goes way back to like, I had no idea you were going to induct me into the Hall of Fame. I had no idea about this statue. Dude, I mean, come on. It's a very, very legendary career. No matter if Cornette or other people say, you're just the guy that worked with the guy that drew money. That was a Cornette quote. He's still an excellent worker. There's somebody like Triple H or Ric Flair or Shawn Michaels. These are guys that obviously personally we have feelings about each other, or they just don't even know I exist and I have feelings about them, whatever. But at the same time, I can appreciate that. Like in the ring, I would want to work Triple H every night. I would want to work Ric Flair every night. I would want to work Shawn Michaels. And getting specifically with Triple H, obviously politically, if you're working Triple H, you're probably going to end up be on the losing end of whatever storyline, but you're also going to be figured into something and have matches and make extra money, and the guy is safe in the ring. So he has a very long career of doing that. He has a lot of highlights and a lot of things, but I think a lot of that is obviously smoke and mirrors. The Terminator entrances, the King of Kings. You have the machine behind you to do all this stuff. And obviously, there's something to be said about being a leader and deferring and putting yourself, in other words, I know people that run promotions and the promoter is literally on the opening match and putting over the younger talent because he also runs the wrestling school, and it's a good way to introduce the young talent, put them over in the first match, no pressure, and they trust you. That's like a Tommy Dreamer, still wrestling, but still helping the younger talent. If Triple H didn't want this kind of criticism outside of the 4 belts, the statue, the surprise Hall of Fame. Oh my God, I can't believe it.
You mentioned Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah. That's the last champion after he shaved his beard and finally put aftershave on there. But looking at this, you know what, Hunter, it would have, not that we're not critical. Like I said, he's a legendary talent. He deserves to have 4 or 5 belts out or whatever. If it makes money, the statue, the point is a meme. I get it. It's fine. It's part of the whole fan access or WWE world experience. But at the same time, wouldn't it go a long way, this particular segment, when he came back, not just for the opening to welcome everybody, which I dare say the Netflix thing was a lot more spectacular than the intro here. I really like that when they debuted on Netflix. What he could have done in that Hall of Fame announcement thing was not been the last one out, not be the center of attention, but give that to somebody like maybe Bret and Austin, who had possibly the greatest WrestleMania match ever. Do you see how that can go a long way? Like, hey, these guys were the start of the Attitude Era. These guys redefined and put WWF at the time on a course, a trajectory of upward mobility. And that match really did that at WrestleMania 13, and that's why it's a Hall of Fame match. That would go a long way, in my opinion, if he didn't take that center stage with his music and separate himself from all the other inductees. What do you think?
They do that every year. I think that might be a storm in a teacup. Whoever was the headliner, they do it every year, whether it's Goldberg or whether it was whatever. It just so happened to be the.
No, I get what the way it's featured. But if Hunter literally said, or just show don't tell, Hunter comes out first and everybody else comes out, and now we're going to talk about Bret and Austin. You don't think like Bret and Austin coming out and literally, his separate entrances, Bret music, Stone Cold music, they're in the center, and they play like a 2-minute highlight of that match, and people are watching it. I think that would embody what WrestleMania is all about.
So, speaking of WrestleMania, what it's all about, we're going to get to the first match. Before we do, though, there was a bit of an intro. I hate to say this, but I think they've done better jobs with the intro videos because a lot of it seems to be a PR backslap. Look, we're on Jimmy Fallon. Look, we're on wherever we're on. I don't know, kind of thing. And it just seemed like very much a corporate version of what a WrestleMania intro should be. The other thing is, I know it's going to sound completely negative starting off that, but I think this WrestleMania overarching was sort of somewhere in the middle of the pack. It wasn't one of the greatest, nowhere near one of the worst, but they also did the exact same Raw / SmackDown intros that they do for every episode since the Netflix era, which is great for those shows, but I was hoping for not that. And just something, one big video package to then get you ready for it. Even if Triple H started at the beginning and said, "Welcome to WrestleMania," then the big intro. But there seemed to be like maybe too few many ideas at the beginning.
Yeah,
Might be
it didn't have the big blockbuster movie trailer feel to it. It felt like something I could edit and put together. And I'm not a great editor, but I'm looking at that, and the voice. You thought it was Triple H, and someone said it was Dana White. And I'm looking at it in the voice.
You thought it was Bubba Ray.
Well, I thought Bubba Ray at first, but then I looked and someone said Dana White voicing it over. Also showing UFC in that. Did you notice that? Like, it felt very much like a sizzle reel on night one for the company, for the actual, like you said, it felt like
for TKO.
Yeah, it felt like an opening where Tony Robbins comes out for 11 hours and starts like the guest speaker or something, It felt very much like a conference opening. To show how whatever. I'll tell you what the greatest opening for WrestleMania ever out of all the 41 that's been done. WrestleMania 20. When it ended with Vince, Shane, and Shane's son, goosebumps. Vince stepping out of the darkness, the cinematic lighting, and I got goosebumps from that because you want to talk about good Lord, we have a legacy. That was the WrestleMania 20, showing Vince Sr., showing Vince Jr., showing WrestleMania 3 and all that. That showed the history of WrestleMania. This showed we're not that WWE anymore. This is a stockholder advertisement. That's what it felt like.
So our next match features our returning Stevie Richards Show champion and undisputed champion of all private networks. I am, of course, talking about NordVPN. NordVPN endeavors to pin down for the 3-count fraudsters, stealing your personal data by hiding your IP and keeping you protected online. With NordVPN, you can protect your entire family's devices with one single subscription, as well as hide your IP address and help stop data leaks, especially when using public Wi-Fi. That is very important. Access favorite streams and social media websites from across the world that are geo-blocked or otherwise region exclusive without losing internet speed. You get to save money and avoid price discrimination by being able to switch your IP location and see if a product is cheaper for another region. And let me tell you, that does happen a lot. You need to check on that. Improve your device's cybersecurity and get dark web alerts to discover whether your personal information has been compromised as well.
To grab our huge discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/BWO. We're taking over. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on a 2-year plan. There's no risk with NordVPN. They have a 30-day money-back guarantee. The link will be in the show episode description box, as well as the pinned comment.
Straight to Jey Uso versus Gunther. One person in the crowd that I wanted to mention was Turkey Al-Sheikh. Now, that's its own story in itself. I don't think many people realise who he is, but I believe he is one of the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia's closest confidants. He's called His Excellency. So, he's well in there, but also he's, along with Dana White and some other people from TKO, they're trying to start their own boxing promotion, and they're also trying to get away with the Ali Act as well, which will give boxers, fair pay and other things like that as well, which is its own controversy, and they're probably going to get away with it. But they're essentially going to try and take on established boxing, your WBOs and all the other promoters, Eddie Hearn and that kind of thing. But let's get to the match itself: Jey Uso versus Gunther. The build-up you can reference briefly. I'd suggest, and then the match quality itself. What did you think?
Well, I still think, and I stand by the fact that they pulled the trigger too early on the heat with Jimmy, where he beat him bloody with Jay zip-tied in the corner. That should have been the go-home show. And really, maybe it wasn't, because if we had that much heat going into it, I dare say, and the quality of the match, I'll give a little spoiler, this could have very well been the main event for night one. Obviously, with the Punk storyline, it's not possible. But this was a main event level quality match. The psychology, I don't like the commentary. You said that Cole mentioned Gunther only pinned twice since moving to Raw. Don't mention that. Too much telegraphing. You agree with that, but I don't think it was a nice touch to foreshadow that he's vulnerable. I believe that when the story got told in the match, and that's something I'll say, some of these matches you might not be crazy about, but from my era and what I look at, the story of this stuff turning Gunther's moves against him, and Gunther cannot beat Jey with those moves. You can say whatever you want when he said he's scared, he's not sure, he's not in his right frame of mind, but this night showed, with all that kind of in context, that it made sense. If you're patient and you look at it from beginning to this end of WrestleMania. Technically, it was great. I don't know about Jey powerbombing Gunther, because Gunther looks a lot bigger. That's a technical aspect of that. But psychology-wise, this was a very tight match. And now, the question I ask, this is where I challenge WWE. When somebody like Gunther loses, what do you have for him? Jey's going to be easy, but Jey's also may head into the Cody Rhodes territory we'll talk about, where babyface champions over time get stale. And I believe during the match, we kind of saw that. But Jey going over was the right decision. As a fan, personal fan of Jey, I like seeing that. And also, you need to have Gunther do something so much worse than the Jimmy thing to get his heat back. Not just come and talk and say, I'm getting the title back, but take his loss as a bully, take it out on somebody else. even if it's an NXT kid that you injure, and then you go to NXT to fight the kid 3 months later, kid still puts you over, but there's a story attached to that show as well. So just off the top of my head, I enjoyed the match, thought it was awesome. And also, at first I said, well, opening match, this match is too good for that. But I said, well, actually, Jey and Gunther are the best workers on the show because they got the first match of the first night. They haven't seen anything. It's a smart move. And to lead with a title change gets people excited and gets them happy for WrestleMania.
We can talk about the follow-up in a second a bit more. What do you think of the finisher? Very quickly, Gunther tapped out from a sleeper. I didn't see that one coming at all. I don't even think the crowd really saw it coming at all. It was almost like a flash submission.
I liked it because when you paired it with the splashes, the power bomb, doing his moves against him, the theme of that psychology of the match, it worked. Also, here, I don't know if it was covered on commentary. I don't remember. If I was commentating, I'd be like, Gunther has never felt anyone choke him out. He panicked. He just tapped because it began unknown because Jey was taking all his moves, kicking out, then literally taking his moves and giving his moves to him. So that's why I think it was very tight that way. And instead of Gunther as a heel, struggling, then the tap, I like the immediate tap because it's such unfamiliar territory for somebody like Gunther. Whoever put the match together, the producer, if there's a writer involved, if Hunter's involved, I clap my hands to you because this was a WrestleMania match with mostly a good WrestleMania storyline going into it.
How many, we've devised a new rating.
Hey.
So 0 to 5 gorillas, or is it no? Keep it to 5. We're not Meltzer, for goodness' sake. Let's not break the scale. So 0 to 5 gorillas. How many do you give it?
I'd have to give it a 5. I have to give it a hey. What are you, a smartass having a
massive?
Fan. What are you, a smartass having a really great match? Hey, no sunset flip, but we'll get 4 splashes. No, I loved it. I loved it.
With Gunther, I think it'd be easier to keep his interest in Gunther just because he's a far more established character in that role than Jey. I've got a feeling if someone was stupid enough to give me the decision-maker power, I'd have Jey lose the title quite quickly.
I was about to say, you're going to pitch Jey losing the title like as early as tonight as we're recording this episode.
No, maybe not. Like in a couple of months or something, back to Gunther. 'Cause I just think Gunther's just better in that role. And I think people would get sick of Jey quickly. Because I think there's already a bit of backlash with Jey because there's a bit more style than substance, at least with the intros. And like that last promo on Raw that he did prior to the pay-per-view was mostly just the eating and dancing and stuff like that. But now we've seen that on the Grande stage. What do you follow that with?
That's a tough question. The only way Jey can lose this quickly without losing whatever steam that he has before he gets stale as a babyface champion, it's very tough to be one, would be someone costing him the title and him diverting to that angle, whoever that is going to be. Hey, you know what? It could be Seth Rollins, and then you got Paul Heyman tied in, and you got Reigns, you got Punk. Jay's in the middle of all that again. And I don't think that's a step back because they have a fresh coat of paint on that whole deal, and we'll get to that.
So we'll move on. Shall I do the celebrity roll calls or just the interesting ones? Rick Rubin was there, the Smoky Mountain Wrestling financier. By the way, I just wanted to make mention of that. And also Chris Angel, who I think's a magician, and I don't know who George Kittle is.
He's a tight end for the San Francisco 49ers. Big wrestling fan.
Yeah. Tell you, we won't spend too much time on
there
this.
was somebody else there that someone talked about, and it wasn't on anybody's bingo card. Jim Cantor from the Weather Channel. He's somehow a celebrity because people love that guy, so he was there as well. I did see some other people along near George Kittle. I can't remember who it was. And of course, you have Pat McAfee on commentary. And hey, by the way, speaking of commentary, congratulations to Wade Barrett. You know, former worker, now a commentator, got his WrestleMania hopefully payday out of that and was able to commentate. And that's extremely hard to carry a night of commentary in that spot. You know, it's every bit as much pressure on the referees, the production people, and especially the commentators. You have to tell the stories. And I know Michael Cole messed a few things up, so that's a little segue for you.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Wade Barrett very much corrected him a couple of times, and good for him as well. Right, next match, nothing really to mention about this. New Day versus the War Raiders. New Day had abs outfits on, and then, is it Wade Barrett says that they look like Giant Gonzalez, and then mentions the chloroform from WrestleMania 9 as well, which I thought was a very nice callback. So that was also in Las Vegas.
Yeah, Taker, sure. I'm sure he loves everybody being reminded of that WrestleMania 9 match.
Do you know what? It's not that bad. I really like it. For a young kid to watch it, it's good. For some snarky internet, here, it's terrible. I like it. I like it as an adult.
Nice. Do you like the WrestleMania 9 venue? Don't you have a video you're planning to come out with different?
Yeah, it's going to have to wait for a year now because it's after WrestleMania. We won't even get any good views out of it, but we'll do that in nearly a year. The match itself, there's one bit that we almost had a what went wrong, and is it Ivar who does a moonsault and he barely clears the mat?
Yeah, that's one. And also the crossbody into the LED apron. I thought he smashed, was it Woods' face? He put his elbows. I thought he might have. Like I said, it's WrestleMania. This is a UFC pay-per-view, these two nights. Everybody's shooting on each other. Tiffany Stratton had a cut on her head. There's all sorts of stuff going on.
Very well. If there was a Korea rating for this, it was a filler match, I guess.
Well, I feel a little bit differently about that. I loved it. I mean,
really?
I wouldn't say it was 5. Hey, it's not 5 out of smart asses, but it's definitely probably like a 3.5 because guess what it did? New Day you want to talk about stale. New Day as babyfaces was about as stale as you can be. Then the heel turn of Woods, but Kofi acting like he was going to be a defender or a babyface. Then they both turn on Big E, which was a shock. And I would have, if he was physically able, I would have left him laying. That would have been great heat. Then the War Raiders as babyface tag team champions kind of just wanted 50-50 style. That the whole division needs to be given greater care than it is. But this match was excellent. And the New Day itself, as heels, have completely, after how many, 15 years or more, they both been with the company?
Both been with the company. New Day's lasted well over 10.
Okay. So even if you just pull in the New Day stuff of 10 years, as heels in the beginning, but then turning babyface and then becoming super stale, they are fresh again. As heel champions, somebody on the creative team really is a fan of the New Day. Otherwise, if they weren't, they would say, you guys have ran your course. But somebody believed that they could carry a different twist on heel characters, and by God, they have. They've done a great job, and now heat is on the tag belts, and hopefully they can literally reinvent that Hart Foundation, Rockers, Rougeos, that time, even Bushwhackers. They had so many teams for years that were really great, where I almost like the tag team division better than some of the singles ones.
Yeah, but the tag team division has just never been the same since the early 2000s. Like, when the Dudleys and Edge and Christian Hardy's going around, it's been... Do you know when I knew the tag division was dead? It was when Edge and Randy Orton were the tag champs. I was like, oh, great, so you've just got 2 stars that you couldn't figure out what to do with to win the belts immediately.
What, isn't it the tag belts?
It's never been amazing.
That's the tag belts.
Yeah.
I've never teamed with you, I hate you or whatever, but let's go out there and win the tag belts, and they do. Maybe we can stop doing that. If you can't figure out what to do with anybody, you have 6 hours of TV. You should be able to figure out something for somebody.
One more thing I wanted to mention, because they were promoting Clash of Clans on this. Pat was going on with himself talking about Clash of Clans, and then just his microphone was cut for like 15 seconds. I'm wondering if production was like, Pat, shut up, stop going on about da-da-da-da-da-da, you're upsetting somebody. And then they just had to like read them the right act and just reset them. Because that happened on night 2 once as well, but I can't remember what they were talking about. But where there was just like 15, 20 seconds of like dead air as far as the commentary goes.
What do you think about Pat McAfee now as a commentator, now he's been doing it for a few years?
I like him. I still like him. It's about time I like him because he's enthusiastic. And I like him because even though he's got so many other things going on, he's more up with the product than I am still, You know what I think he does a really good job.
You know what I think about McAfee? He's an example, and the reason why they need to see, Michael Cole doesn't have Vince McMahon in his headset, which tends to be a little bit more negative and no checks and balances. a guy like McAfee, if you can get him, Mauro Ranallo, I think, and McAfee would be incredible together because they can't contain. They're not a corporately produced product like the opening. McAfee says whatever he wants. He gets his little shots in, some inside baseball, but excitement. The whole thing with Nakamura and Rick Boogs, where he stood up on the table and did the thing. If a regular commentator would do that, Vince would have yelled and screamed, and you're just sitting on the couch watching a match. McAfee jumped up and did that because he's an outside guy, but the freedom to react. Matt Stryker was really good at that, but they didn't like it because you're a wrestler, you're a sports entertainer. But when you bring in an outside guy and you give him the freedom to be himself, the commentary is much more exciting. You can feel his energy. Cole sounds like he's an indentured slave to WWE, and I got 10 more years, and I'm paying off this debt. He's trying to enjoy it, and you love his eating. You love it.
Do you know, he didn't do it on the table this time, but if he ever does it on the table again, I'm going to buy Tommy Dreamer a ticket for the floor myself.
Well, you already got the thumbnail. You already got the thumbnail ready to go.
You loved that thumbnail as well.
I
sent that you as soon as I did it.
I loved it from a dare standpoint. I was like, there's no way you're putting this thumbnail up, and there's no way.
I didn't consider not to.
They were not going to get blocked worldwide and maybe on the moon and Mars as well.
No, it was fine. It's fine. Why not? Right, let's move on. Now, this is something interesting. Jade Cargill versus Naomi. So the build was the build, I guess. I mean, I think it had some interest going in. I did write the first thing is Naomi looks like a damn road sign, brackets Owen Hart. She's very much got the, warning, do not cross tape all over kind of thing. Jade's interesting because I don't know where the fans stand with her. They didn't boo her. They're nowhere near as warm on her as they were a year ago. Are people seeing through the act a little bit? She looks a lot smaller as well, I think, than previously. Or is that just me?
No, I didn't notice any kind of size. So maybe leaning out for WrestleMania, a different look. Naomi could be an Owen Hart fan, by the way. Could be some kind of tribute to Owen because it is very familiar with his road sign outfit. Like enough is enough and it's time for a change gimmick that he did. Naomi is more interesting to me because she, like the New Day, was stale as a baby face. I mean, like you said, the kids, the glow sticks, the glasses, giving them the kid. There's a place for that, and she can go back to that. This heel character has not been taken care of creatively enough. In other words, there wasn't enough heat on Jade Cargill outside of the mystery attack. All the heat for this WrestleMania match was about a year ago or something that was so far long ago, it doesn't even translate. But Naomi showed a vicious side. And actually, like I say, I talk about certain girls that can work like guys. She can do athletic stuff and work like guys and do things. Jade gets a little bit exposed for her limited amount of wrestling knowledge or wrestling ability when she's in there with Naomi, even though Naomi is giving her everything, including, for some reason, putting her over at WrestleMania, which is strange because her heel run just kind of got started. So that's what I mean. Like in a clean finish or no debut of anybody with Naomi that could cost Jade the match. So where she's still chasing Naomi. And if they have a match on SmackDown or a future rematch or whatever, what does it mean? When Jade has already won, why would she want to go back and do that? And why is Naomi going to keep coming back trying to hurt her when she hurt her so long ago and it didn't work? I'm bringing all these questions up because both girls are they're kind of in a purgatory right now creatively. What do you do with them? Which direction do you take them? Because it's very, very hard to book after WrestleMania because it really does the business at least till SummerSlam or Elimination Chamber Summer Edition. We're going to do one every season. They can take it. That's the theme of Elimination Chamber. They can take it.
Bloody more where that came from is what it should be. That should be the tagline. You get injured, well, there's another one right behind you. With Jade, right? So with this match, you tell me if I'm off base, is that Jade seems to have no instincts for pro wrestling at all, despite the fact she's done it quite a few years now. yet somehow pulled off all the big moves. And like they were almost teetering at times. It was like a top rope bulldog into something else that almost went wrong, then went right. Then another one that almost went wrong, then went right. So they can pull off the big moves, but like I don't know if it's just like Jade just doesn't seem to have like any like natural instinct for this at all.
And she has she has every other tool in the book to be successful. And that's exactly why she's still figured in, because if she didn't look the way she did, if she didn't carry that poise and presence, and she does have a natural charisma, and she just looks different than anybody. She looks different than even most of the guys. So that's enough to get Ultimate Warrior. She can literally wrestle better than Ultimate Warrior. And look how over Ultimate Warrior was. It's not even about wrestling. It's about working. But I do know this, and it's just my eye because I can see it. She has a very nervous tick of flexing and doing something bodybuilding based whenever she gets lost in the wrestling. Is that kind of what you're saying? She doesn't...
Not even that. She just doesn't seem to just realize it doesn't come natural to her what to do next, and you can see the cogs whirring in her mind trying to remember, you know, what we did in the ring in the hotel room for the last 3 weeks or whatever it is. Not in the hotel room.
You know why though? My guess, because all they did at AEW was rehearse, and she got a push on day one, and she got the Goldberg treatment.
Yeah, but that's exactly the thing. They gave her very short matches, whereas in WWE they're obviously more keen on, with Goldberg as well, dragging these matches out a bit longer. You know, this probably went 8 minutes or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
And
8 minutes when you're nervous and your heart rate's going before that music even hits. This is the thing about the WrestleMania thing, and it's an overarching theme. They did almost go wrong a few times, but the match was pretty tight. You know why? You have an entire week or more to rehearse this match. I have no doubt they had rings available to walk through it. They had their blocked out times. That's why WrestleMania usually comes across a lot more polished most times than a TV or a pay-per-view, because there's no time to rehearse when you're just trying to do it week in and week out. That's why I still think there should be somewhat of an off season to some degree, because the fans are burned out and the wrestlers and everybody in creative is burned out by that point.
I also want to make mention that Naomi hit Jade with the rings of Saturn, which is just like one of the best. And I know Perry Saturn disagrees with everything you've ever said, but Saturn's Rings of Saturn is one of the best submissions ever, and I love that submission. I just like seeing it. And the commentary referred to it as the Rings of Saturn, which I thought was great as well.
Well, Perry Saturn is such a nice, kind man he's an amazing Madden player, and definitely does the best rings to say. He's the best at everything. And like, if you don't take my word for it, go to Perry and say, Stevie had all these things to say about you. What say you?
There's one other thing, right? So obviously there's a couple of stories coming out with Jade, and I'm gonna get to what I'm getting at, I suppose, in a second. But there was the story with Shayna Baszler. They had a sort of standoff backstage, apparently, where apparently Jade had the nerve to say that Shayna Baszler couldn't work, and Shayna basically threatened to beat her up, which was broken up, and then that was separated.
You can't
Shayna
work.
Baszler of all people.
You can't work. Okay, I'm not going to work. Right? Sorry.
Amazing. It's amazing stuff. Anyway, the point is that these stories get out, and then just like Jade's entire demeanor, it's like I think she's so miscast as a babyface. She's so obviously a heel.
Well, think about it. What did you see when that's where WWE is tone deaf? The Alberto Del Rio style. All these people are supposedly like the Vince McMahon effect of you look like now in 2025, maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, Jade Cargill dressing to the nines, looking like her outfit cost thousands of dollars. Her hair is perfect. She has the perfect like bodybuilding physique that any woman or man would want that wants to attain that. She shows up with it in a chauffeured like Tahoe or Suburban for the debut. She's like nose up in the air. Like everything's a heel. It's like Cody. Like he's a heel. This whole thing with Jade, you're right. They gave her the superstar Michael Jordan, LeBron James treatment, which is great. But she seemed to be coddled when she came in, which the fans, maybe that's why they fell flat. It's like, we know you're trying to push this girl. And they react. It's a Roman Reigns effect. We know what you're trying to do, and we're starting to do the opposite.
It's not even like we know we're going to push you. It's like we know we're going to give you every opportunity before this push ends, kinds of thing. So you can tell someone's going to get this, and she did get the special treatment when she debuted. I'll tell you that for nothing.
I still say I stand behind this.
I
stand by this forever. The formula, the blueprint that works, male or female, is the Diesel blueprint. She should have been a bodyguard that didn't say a word, that just stood there and learned from ringside how it goes, ring awareness, and training in the ring with people like Fit Finley, whoever, TJ Wilson, getting better. And that's what leads me to believe also is they may have just wanted to throw her out there and see how she does and give her longer matches. They did not play to the strengths that could really, they even did it with Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker got a better Goldberg-like treatment in WWE because he just turned around, speared people, pin them right away in his first 2 to 3 matches. So they're doing what they want to do. If they wanted to take better care of her creatively, and I know I keep saying that ad nauseum, take a drink, just like future episode, but creative needs to take great care of these talents. And I think there were personal issues, even outside of Shayna Baszler, with Bianca Belair when they were tag champs. So it's very much, because after that, I think they really did the injury angle. Tag belts were off them, and then no one really even talked about it forever.
Very quickly, you would have said that Naomi should have won this because now there's nowhere to go for either of them.
1,000%. You can't have the heels going. You have to have fans going home happy with certain matches. You have to have payoffs and angles. But this was just getting started. This could have been pushed back to a SummerSlam rematch where Jade goes over.
How many Guerrillas out of 5?
I would say 3, smart ass. No, 3. I'd give it 3 because I did expect Jade, and she almost did, like you said. I expected Jade to really, really trip over her own feet. It's an immense. She never worked any place like this. Maybe AEW. She worked Wembley one time.
Not the one I went to.
Even if she did, there's nothing like that. There's nothing like seeing and the entire week and the build up, and you're in the wrestling bubble in a way where you start to think about the enormity of WrestleMania. And if second you say I better not mess up, that's when you start overthinking it.
Next up, we have Jacob Fatu versus L.A. Knight. Yeah!
L.A. Knight. No, not tonight.
No. LA comes out driven to the ring in a Maserati 4220. Talk to me. I know you won't get the reference. It doesn't matter. And Jacob Fatu straight out the blocks, immediately blocks LA's finisher, takes over quickly. Commentators talk about the beating on LA Knight on SmackDown the night before. Once again, is that just another telegraphing, or is that less obvious than the Gunther one? When they talk about, man, LA Knight took a heck of a beating the night before.
Yeah, it's absolutely foreshadowing. They're doing the right thing. They're telling a story that he's not 100%, but nobody really is 100% in a babyface way going into WrestleMania. There's some heat on all baby faces.
Well, I'm not going to go through the entire match. I thought this really, I'm not even sure it over-delivered, but I really enjoyed it. I mean, that Jacob Fatu, man, I thought he'd be in the main event by now already, but I'm glad to see that the steam hasn't left him and the fans are really behind him just because he's amazing.
Yeah, he absolutely is. The one thing I would say, a little what went wrong, is when they said when he did the moonsault and LA Knight dropped him, it was basically an RKO. It wasn't a blunt force trauma thing. I mean, to get somebody like that dude who can even do a moonsault is crazy. I'll say this here, I don't know what they're going to do with either talent after this, because they were 50-50 cheering for both of them, and they really cheered when Jacob Fatu won. So this guy, because I'll tell people why, because you're like, well, he was supposed to be a heel going into it. It's kind of a weird spot he's in because he's a heel when it comes to LA Knight, but then he's also chirping back at Solo and Tama Tonga. So people want to like him. Plus, he's like Sid Vicious. He kicks ass. Of course, he does moves Sid didn't do, but people are always going to like an intense, kick-ass, whatever he is. And they're starting to
There's nothing to boo.
There's nothing to boo. There's no holes in his game. You're not going to have the guy beg off. You better not have him beg off from anybody. It's a weird thing. And I can see Jacob Fatu in a way where if he can get himself in the same kind of shape that Roman Reigns was in for WrestleMania, he'll be right up there with him. And I know it sounds very superficial to say if he gets himself in better shape, but it's still a very aesthetic business that way. He still has the enforcer and the guy, the person that beats people down type thing. Now's his chance to show with the U.S. title, just like way back in the day, the Intercontinental title was the testing ground for the WWF title. Use the U.S. title as a springboard to put you and keep you up in the main event with people like Roman Reigns.
I did a bit of betting because it's always a bit of fun to do a bit of betting on these things. I messed up one. I went for a treble and I messed up the winner of Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton, so I didn't get the treble. But that being said, I got the other two right. But Jacob Fatu was 1-6. He was the biggest favourite going into WrestleMania to win the title, to win their match, in fact. And of course, he did. There was one bit. There was a German from the top rope that LA Knight, by LA Knight on Fatu, that led to an incredibly close 2 count. And I sort of saw Charles Robinson just, 1, 2, kind of just like do that stutter thing. But it's like, you better not count 3. Yeah, because that's not the finish, buddy.
No,
so
it was,
Charles did the right
Charles
thing.
Counts. Charles has to count. Really, really interesting finish. I feel for LA Knight because LA Knight gets the momentum, gets himself back over. The fans are still chanting his name and saying the words. And I love the springboard up to the top rope, Macho Man elbow. That's all awesome. But you keep starting this guy. He feels like he dips down. He tries to make it back up. He dips back down. He's always in the mix, but it doesn't feel like they're getting the full potential out of him. So once again, the theme of this whole thing is WWE creative. What are you going to do with these talents to make them even better after WrestleMania 41?
How many careers out of 5?
4. Hey, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? You smartass. They're both better workers than you. Hey, you're a Samoan and you're German.
Caucasian.
You're going to be a tag team and a Ben & Jerry's flavor.
Right, okay then. So next on the agenda, next match is El Grande Americano, Chad Gable, versus Rey Fenix, a last-second replacement almost for Rey Mysterio. Now, there was an announcement before this match took place about WWE buying AAA. We are not going to be talking about that on this episode. We're going to save that for our regular Wednesday episode, our regular Friday episode that we record on Wednesday, excuse me. So, because we've just got so much to talk about, and that's going to have to sort of like go on to the news episode that we're going to be coming out with this coming Friday. But Rey Fenix versus El Grande Americano. Very first thing is, was Fenix the right person to put in this spot, or would you have gone with Dragon Lee?
I would have gone with Dragon Lee. Rey Fenix, at the time, he just debuted, even though there's been a lot of 50-50 booking with him. He's fresh. He needs to be on somewhat of an undefeated streak until he gets to a point of his first storyline, his first feud. Looking at it in retrospect, they did a lot better with Penta in the long run, putting him into this mix after the angle with, Kaiser. And then, who was that other one? Pete Dunne. Little stuff that at the beginning, I was like, oh, this is kind of flat. But they built him up a little slower. Rey Fenix literally just got the WWE, just debuted. He has barely one handful of matches, right? Maybe 3 at the most. 3 or 4. Let's call it whatever. But he's been featured and protected to some degree. Dragon Lee has not been pushed, has not been really used to his fullest talents, which leads me to believe that it would have been great to put him in there to prove himself. And Dragon Lee could hang with Chad Gable or El Grande Americano, which, by the way, that entrance was awesome, the way they did the old sepia tone from old school Mexico, Nacho Libre type stuff, I think. But looking at that, Dragon Lee would have gotten over no matter what happened because he hadn't been featured and he wanted to step up and prove to be a member of the LWO or be up there and prove to Rey that he could at least put on a WrestleMania level match. Rey Fenix doing that and losing doesn't feel right. Feels like a step back. I mean, being at WrestleMania is great as a talent. Good for Rey Fenix. But I really do believe Rey Fenix still needs to be attached more to Penta than Rey Mysterio. His own brother's in the company. I mean, what are we doing here?
I think they're splitting them up just until they really need them together. So when the shine's off the apple for both of them, that's when you put them as a tag team and get more mileage out of them. That's my guess.
Hey, you're a tag team.
You're a brother. You're a brother.
Oh, I didn't even know that. You know how to do a sunset flip? No, but I'm gonna argue with you on the little bit there. You mean to tell me that your own brother's in the company and you're being beat up by Judgment Day, but Braun Breaker comes out to save you and not Rey Fenix? Now, if nobody was coming out to save him, okay, I get it. Penta wants to stand on his own. But do you see what I mean? Why do you have a total stranger saving you, but your own brother is like, nah, I got to get mine in?
You mentioned, it's like, hey, Rey Fenix. Hey, Rey Fenix, you haven't even got a storyline yet, and now you're losing on WrestleMania. But I mean, you could argue just as much here that this is the story. This is story part one, because I mean, he's essentially in Rey Mysterio's spot now. So there was obviously going to be an El Grande Americano versus Rey Mysterio feud that was going to go on for months and months. Now this is the story. Now it's going to be Rey Fenix maybe for months and months, where he eventually gets revenge.
Okay, we get back to the theme throughout every finish of every match. What will creative do for Rey Fenix? The only thing I can think of is giving Rey Fenix a surprise win over somebody that's considered to be much higher on the card than him, an upset on the Raw or SmackDown after WrestleMania. Are you going to have a rematch with El Grande Americano, or are you going to have it with Chad Gable because they're playing both characters right now, and Chad will put him over, and that's supposed to be he got his win back? They booked themselves into a tough spot with him. They act like wins and losses don't matter. That you get the win matches for 3 months, then you get the win matches 3 months, then you see what I mean? They think at the end of the 9 months that everybody's over, but no, everybody's just flatlined or actually lower. I mean, see LA Knight and tell me about that.
Mm-hmm. What do you think of the match itself? We'll get to the finish in a minute, but I was sort of putting myself in Phoenix's place. I know he's wrestled many years and stuff, but man, the nerves, especially at short notice as well. So I don't know how long they would have actually realistically had to put this match together. Hours. That's my point. That's my point. That this was glaring, that with other matches that should have went wrong a lot during the match but didn't, they had much more time to prepare, to rehearse, to go through it. And these guys are both really great workers, so I have no doubt. But in that system, you unlearn sometimes the audibles, or you're not allowed to do any audibles, or you're not allowed to call certain things out there. It's got to be very A-B, like paint by numbers. And I think the only criticism was, I could tell that they had to stay within paint by numbers and couldn't do things to the ability of just feeling it out there and having an actual match, and that hurt them. And I would give them 2.5 Koreas. Really?
Yeah.
I quite enjoyed this match.
I enjoyed their work, but I think I'm talking about what they did to Rey Fenix, making him do the job, making this a very rushed thing was not good creatively. So I take the points off, not for the match, but for the lack of creative going into it to protect. And remember, Chad Gable also, up until this point, was putting everybody over. So this is the 50-50 booking.
Vikingo was out there at the beginning, which is crazy, thinking that he was just wrestling for AEW not too long ago, and the whole AAA situation with WWE that we'll be going into in deeper context.
Yeah, what happened to that guy? He was a part of like ROH a lot, the ROH shows, like the Viking guy, right?
Yeah. He was like the new biggest thing a couple of years ago with AEW, and then he just disappeared.
But he was he was the one, somebody was on the table on the outside and he kept jumping. He had to go back, am I remembering that wrong?
Am I remembering that wrong? I think
he did a thing where he kept trying to jump. He kept trying to put something through a table on the outside on the floor, but he kept like slipping off the rope and going back up, and it ended up happening. But that was a while ago.
Right. If someone knows where we can find the clip of that, let us know in the comments. But he's one of the biggest stars for AAA. He was brought into AEW to be a big star, and then once again just disappeared like so many people do. What do you think of the finish? Because this is so pro wrestling, but in a good way. I love the whole How come the metal plate doesn't hurt Chad's head, but it hurts the other person's head, kind of thing? But I like that logic. There's something charming about it and a throwback.
Yeah, that's part of the thing that gives it 2.5 Koreas. You know, the 2.5 is not saying it was a bad match. It's saying the presentation, obviously all hands on deck. Ray's hurt. I already did my rant about that because that takes a little bit of the Koreas off as well. It seems weird to say that, but it sounds better than stars. But I'm looking at that and I'm like, you put these guys in sort of, for lack of a better word, an unwinnable situation. You had to think on your feet, do that stuff. I'm just presenting an alternative because the Dragon Lee could have done that job, could have lost that match, and got way more over. You challenged that Ray Fenix still had exposure of WrestleMania and everything. I agree with that. But still, if you're looking at the basic blueprint to protect the talent in the beginning after their debut, you do not make them do a job that quickly.
Very quickly as well, El Grande Americano's logo is a total rip-off of WrestleMania 38s. Or 39s, I think. He's got like a blue star and then it's just got like Grande, I think.
Oh, yeah, from the Dallas one, right?
Yeah. I think it was that one. Just one more thing of what I mentioned, apart from the fact that Chad Gable's great and one of the most underappreciated people in WWE history, maybe, over the course of his career. Man, is he cut at the moment. He is shredded. His best shape he's ever been, you know, cosmetically.
And that's saying something because he's always been pretty jacked all along. I think he's Kurt Angle. He's Kurt Angle. They just have been so slow in trying to translate that. And WWE, for some reason, will not do Occam's razor. They will not take the straight path. They will go all the way around. And finally, when you're tired of it, they'll be like, oh, no, he's Kurt Angle. He is Kurt Angle. As a matter of fact, if you could bring Kurt back to be his manager, those two with their personalities and their comedic talent would be some of the most fun segments you'll ever watch.
Next up, I don't know what it is next up because I've got so much about Triple A.
Triple H.
Is it? Hey, Triple H.
Triple H for post-show press conference. You actually
no. That's all Triple A stuff. That's all Triple A
stuff. But you also made a note, and we talked about it, I believe, on the last episode of why are you giving away the fact that John Cena is not really turning heel, that you had to workshop it with him and ask him to pull the lever finally, or suggested that. And you had put in the notes, just give the finishes away. That's what I said last week. Yeah, why you, if you're giving that much away, you should be like, this is going to be a hell of a run by Cena as champion after this show. You're about this far from doing it anyway.
Next, oh, God, we've got a lot to talk about on Wednesday. I say Wednesday, we record it on Wednesday for a Friday show, but yeah, it's just how it is. Next up now, Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair. This is a tough one. This is a tough one to even grade or even... I mean, you were saying with Fenix on the way into their match and you were taking Gurria's off. We're measuring everything in Tony Gurria's, by the way. With 0 to 5 if you're just watching this on the clip. But this didn't do it for me at all, this match.
Well, because you were hoping for a train wreck.
Well, yeah, but I sort of got one, but not that of an entertaining one. I was hoping for just something more interesting.
You were hoping for 8 minutes of that Nia Charlotte stuff. They started whacking each other, right? And everybody was going into business for themselves.
Hey, I was hoping for Minoru Suzuki versus Butterbean again. We need to watch that, by the way.
Oh, wow. You want I was laughing. You literally want the old school WWF Wrestling Challenge Murder Hour. That's what you... I will say this. You take this is the thing where when you have something, much like the Jey and Gunther thing, you presented a very personal blood feud, literally and figuratively, going into WrestleMania. That's the one thing that takes some Gurrias off as well, or partial Gurrias, because you turned a blood feud into a technical wrestling match. Tiffany and Charlotte should have had a stipulation. Tiffany and Charlotte should have had a stipulation going into the match to play around. Should have been, you know what they should have made it? They hate each other so much. It cannot be contained by the ring. This will be a Falls Count Anywhere match. Now you can have them in the ring, go to the back, pre-tape all the stuff in the back to make it clean, come back out for the finish. Like a backlot brawl match. Why didn't you just redo that and have everything you could with that? It was missing a stipulation outside of the title match.
I think it was missing more. So we're going to go to night 2 very briefly from my example. That triple threat match to open up night 2 was brilliant. That was one of the best opening matches you'll ever see. And let me tell you something. That was everything right that Tiffany and Charlotte was wrong. Because, yes, it's all rehearsed. They've done it for weeks probably. They've worked it out. But I tell you what, Rhea was laying them kicks in. I nearly said something really bad then. She was laying them kicks in. I'll tell you what it was afterwards. And then Io Sky as well. They were lumping each other as hard as they could. It looked great and everything worked. This, they weren't hitting each other anywhere near hard enough, for a blood feud kind of thing. And then a lot of the pre-prescribed things that they worked out in the back didn't work, or they had to, take 2-3 attempts on it as well, and it just felt, I just wasn't into it at all, man.
Well,
especially that weird build.
Yeah, I have a theory about that. I'm saying if, because we'll get to the Travis Scott thing with Cody, because they seem to have worked us on the slap and the eardrum, I guess. But going with the Tiffany and Charlotte thing, if they truly do not get along, if they truly do not like each other, and this is not going to make sense to most people. I've been in the ring with people that I do not care for, and they do not care for me. We're actually much more careful because we don't want to be that guy. That's what I felt during this match. They were being extra cautious, careful, and working because they don't want to be, either one of them be accused of going into business for themselves. And we know that Charlotte has a reputation for that. So she may have been like, I don't know if it was spoken. And like I said, we don't know if they truly do not get along with each other. But I will say this, it seemed like they didn't get along with each other. And this match seemed like they were old friends taking care of each other.
It was that build, man, that weird promo that we couldn't stop talking about, where they just kept going off the rails, giving each other personal jibes. You could tell what was scripted, you could tell what wasn't. And then the next week they do a physical interaction where it's sort of just, for me, I know we talked about it last week, but for me it was just like, oh, well, we know they can work physically together.
Pro wrestling. It was a pro wrestling fight.
Yeah, and then the week afterwards, they do separate interviews where they talk about how they, where Tiffany, I think, basically said, well, I had a couple of weeks after the first promo, they did that sort of face-to-face, 2 separate screens thing, where Charlotte talked all over her. It's like that one little thing where they had that physical interaction in between those 2 interview segments, two SmackDowns apart, ruined it for me. And then they went into this match without that anticipation of whether they're going to work well together or not, which they work, as you completely right, they work with each other completely, and it was worse off for it.
Yeah, there's only one part that I thought was wow, and she did it to herself. My wife even watched it when I was watching the match, and went, ooh, when the knees came up for the moonsault, she ate that pretty good. And the only other thing, you were talking about things that went wrong, it seemed like it was going to go off the rails when they were doing like the backflip in the corner and then the belly to back flip. It looked like it was about to, but they recovered. But that's all the thing of cooperation. And once you know it's a cooperation, which is tough in wrestling, we go back to Bret and Austin. They were working, but it wasn't clean. It wasn't so rehearsed. And that's why today it's a Hall of Fame match, because they're standing next to each other. They like each other, but like when I watch the match, they don't like each other and they want to kill each other. That's the feeling you want, and that's the feeling we did not get from this match.
Yeah, that's the problem with having 2 gymnasts wrestle each other, I guess. Do you know what, right? Just because I love to mention Dutch, but he's one of the best people I can ever think of as an example, but your Dutch Mantels, your Jerry Lawlers, your, for goodness sakes, you fabulous ones, your Bill Dundees. I'm using people from Memphis as an example, but that was a great territory for people who knew how to brawl. And I'll tell you what, not one single person can hold a candle to any of those people who I just mentioned, who can brawl just using kicks and punches and make it entertaining for a long, stretched out period of time. That's what this match needed, and instead it's just the usual stuff you get from every WWE or AEW match to an extent. You just get pre-prescribed, choreographed stuff. This is meant to be a blood feud with 2 people who really hate each other. But, you know, I'll get you in a backdrop and you flip over and then you do this thing and then you do that thing. There's no differentiating between a blood feud and any other match in style.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I would say this too. Oh, many people, as a matter of fact, over the past few episodes, especially on Patreon, have requested that we put like our top wrestling punches, like top 5 people that throw the best 5 punchers in wrestling. We have that kind of listing. So that's a great segue to maybe write that down. Future episode, take a drink. But yeah, that's the problem is if there's a wrestling match that turns into a blood feud, that's totally fine. A blood feud cannot turn into a wrestling match. It's a disconnect. And unfortunately, that's what we got. It would have been great. This was what WrestleMania is all about, though, by the way. The match is whatever. But the beauty shot, the pyro, the Barbie box entrance, Charlotte's its entrances and post-match poses. And the crowd, the sea of people, the presentation. The stage has its own video of it being debuted. The stage is a star. It's a gimmick. It's a character. That's all people care about in the end. This is literally, you can condense this 2 night of WrestleMania down to the highlights they're going to show in B-roll packages for the next year to the next one. That's really all this was for.
The moonsault, as you rightly made mention of, where her face ends up in Charlotte's... Sorry, the prettiest moonsault ever. Tiffany does the moonsault and then ends up face first in Charlotte's knee brace. There was a rumor, it was reported, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah, she got a whack on the head, a bit of a hematoma, but it was reported straight afterwards that she chipped or knocked out a tooth, where Tiffany then had to go on Instagram and basically just do this, just to prove that she hadn't knocked out a tooth. She got away with it as well. As far one more thing, actually. Do you remember a few weeks ago, once again, with the interview battle that went off the rails, and they both turned up dressed exactly the same? And then they sort of kind of did it again on Saturday as well. I thought their outfits were very, very similar, and very similar shades of pinky, icy blue kind of thing as well.
Are they trying to do the twins, like evil twin, good twin stuff, like Michael Knight and Garth Knight? Or these things are just 2-for-1 deal at Joanne Fabrics going out of business sale? Or what? They
should be like twins, like Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
That would be interesting. But they do look a lot. They do look a lot alike. But that's the whole thing with the story too. They're tell, and not show don't tell. In other words, they're both saying they're almost exactly alike. That Tiffany was the next Charlotte, all you know. But that's, I don't know. It seems like a lot of the same. Like you said, we don't have white hat, black hat. We don't have good guy, bad guy type thing. And when they're wearing the same outfit, and obviously Charlotte is definitely, the fans are turning on Charlotte. Once again, I get back to my point throughout every match. Tiffany's easy because she has the title. What are you going to do with Charlotte? Like as soon as tonight, as we record this, for the Raw or SmackDown after WrestleMania, what are you going to do?
How many careers?
2.
Hey, you're agreeing. You're agreeing.
Hey, whatever happened to the murder hour?
My favorite. All right, well, let's get on to the Hall of Fame recap. So,
I did not watch any of this. I just looked at the first note. You're kidding me.
67 minutes. Triple H's speech was.
Are you kidding me?
67 minutes. Who would have thought that he went Broadway and plus on his speech? And keep in mind, when did this end? 4 a.m. Eastern, so way past 1 a.m. West Coast. I imagine a lot of people on East Coast time as well.
Wow. I thought you were playing a joke on me with that. You said Hall of Fame recap. Triple H had over an hour speech. In other words, he beat the record of Bret and Shawn at the Iron Man match because they had 60 plus like a 3-minute overtime. Yeah. So he's 4 minutes. What can you... Thank God I have you. Because if someone told me like, hey, James says, hey, I'm sick, I can't do it. You have to pull 67 minutes of the WrestleMania episode. I'd be like, I can't do it. So, I mean, bravo to you. I mean, I'm not going to watch it. But good.
That's fine. I didn't watch it either. You must be joking. I didn't watch it. If nothing else, because I just didn't think that the Hall of Fame was that exciting this year. Because you had Triple H, who deserves it, and then, for the most part, a bunch of people who were like Lex Luger, which is arguable, probably yes. To Michelle McCool, which is an absolute no, but is The Undertaker's wife. Here's the real story of the Hall of Fame. Because it was so late, Triple H was blathering on for well over an hour. There was a number of people who were taking photos of wrestlers in the crowd, apparently falling asleep. Most angles taken of Booker T, who just looked gone. But there was also Eric Bischoff, Jey Uso, Naomi, Logan Paul, Montez Ford, LA Knight, Solo Sikoa, Cody Rhodes, maybe even more, who people was, instead of listening to the speeches, people were just snapping the wrestlers, just nodding off. So here's the thing, though.
Can I stop you real quick?
Yeah.
I was... Oh, my God. If I'm just like 67 minutes, I can't get past it. But I was going to say, if I ever do, the only way I will ever go into the Hall of Fame is if Tony Gurria inducts me and buries me the entire time. He can bury me for 67 minutes. Believe me, I'm sure Gurria can, but I would love it. I remember, just a side note, my favorite Hall of Fame like induction speech was in the early part of it where they weren't in arenas, but it was in a bigger like ballroom or something.
It's like a banquet hall kind of thing.
And black, it was a little bigger than back in the Andre the Giant induction days. It was a little bigger than that. I had Blackjack Lanza up there, not for me, but I was watching him. And Blackjack Lanza was trying to do a speech, but he'd walk away from the podium and be like, this guy over here. You wouldn't hear him. He would just be doing the Tony, walking back and forth. And it went on this is forever. This is 5 ever, not forever. So yeah, it's 67-minute speech. This dude is not a mark for himself at all. This is like 20 minutes per special era belt that was created for him.
Maybe if they come up with a smartass award in the shape of Tony Gurria's head, and you're the first recipient.
It would have to be a wrestler sunset flipping another wrestler as the trophy. So let's get the main event championship belt, see if they can make that.
So maybe the greatest moment of the night, all of the WWE Hall of Famers that had been honoured the night before were all on stage apart from Triple H, who got his own entrance, as the main events of the Hall of Fame always gets, whether it's Goldberg or whoever else it is. And to your eternal delight, Stevie, is Triple H, and he gets the whole music, he does the water spitting and all that kind of thing, but then he shakes everybody's hand, and he shakes Steve Austin's hand, who is gracious enough, I guess, and then he shakes Bret's hand. Watch this.
Ah! Here we go. Slow-mo. You know what Bret's saying? Bret's so funny, by the way. He has a dry sense of humor. I haven't been around him that much, but I hear what he says to other people. He probably leaned into Austin and said, man, he's still doing the speech. Like it's going on for days. That was great. Whoa. No, I did see this, but I didn't. This is such an Easter egg. I thought you had said they cut the Bret during the speech and he rolled his eye. Did Bret even go to, did he leave after he was done? I would have left.
Oh, probably, yeah.
That's great. Oh.
Thing is, Bret and Triple H have never gotten along. And as far as I can tell, it's entirely Triple H's fault because he was with Shawn and making as much trouble as humanly possible at that time. I disagree
with that. I disagree with that part. Hunter basically was a person that was the scapegoat to hate because he wasn't figured in as much politically as Shawn. He was figured in because he was in that clique, but Hunter was just a guy that was trying to basically get himself over and trying to, to politically align himself with these guys. They became friends, I guess, but he was always the guy. He hated Triple H, but he had to do business with Shawn. This is just my guess. It's always easy to hate Hunter, but Hunter wasn't going around. Hunter was the sober one. Hunter was the one that drove people out. Hunter was the clean one out of the group. They admit that. Remember, they've done shoot interviews that Hunter was the guy that got them around, and he was 100%. I give him credit for that. But he's easy to hate. I mean, for 67-minute speeches, he's really easy to dislike. But at the same time, you can't. For Bret to hate him because of Shawn, that's...
Oh, no. There's more.
There's more, but the basis of it is, I got my clique with the Hart Foundation and the people who love me, and you have your clique and the people who love you, and therefore it's gang warfare. That's all I'm saying. I mean, Hunter has definitely done some stuff, but the pure basis of this, in my opinion, is he hated Hunter because of somebody completely different than Hunter.
Well, Triple H has claimed responsibility for the Montreal Screwjob many years after the fact, after I think it was fairly well established that it was actually Jim Cornette who inadvertently mentioned it first. But anyway, Triple H said there was a phone call that happened with Shawn, myself, and Vince McMahon. Vince said, look, Bret's not going to do it. He refuses to do it. I don't remember all the specifics, but I was the one that was like, F that. If he won't do it for him. So apparently the Montreal Screwjob, according to Triple H only, is that it was Triple H's suggestion. But there's even more. Bret Hart. Now, Triple H made many lives hell in WWE. This is a longer quote, so do bear with. Triple H and maybe even Shawn Michaels were pretty ruthless. If someone was tied to me or connected to me, they would try to ruin them. Even Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. They really tried to crack him and bust his chops. I remember telling Dwayne all the time, don't listen to these guys, you're really good talent, and you don't need these guys. When I did the big interview about America, the next week's taping, I wrestled The Rock, and they wanted me to beat it. They being D-Generation X or the future D-Generation X. Triple H did. He wanted me to beat Dwayne and win the Intercontinental title. I refused. What do I need the Intercontinental title for? We did the figure 4 on the post. Steve Austin came out, did it, and he ended up in a DQ. But the point is that the idea was to get him into the IC title picture, was to keep Bret away from the main event title picture so he wouldn't be wrestling Shawn. And guess what happened the next year in the NWO WCW? Bret Hart joins the NWO for no good reason, and then all of a sudden he wins the United States title.
To stay away from Hogan. Stay away from Hogan. I'm not saying that Triple H is innocent on all counts. I'm saying the origin of this, because just as many people also had it, the Rougeaus had a problem with the Hart clique and everybody involved with that, including Dynamite Kid. So there's politics on both ends of this. Now, Bret would be the person, like Cornette and other people have said, I'd rather deal with Bret as far as creative matches, finishes, than Shawn and the clique. I agree with that, but let's not say, like, Bret was pretty politically powerful in his own right with the Hart Foundation and people in that group that they had. And they kind of made, Dynamite Kid and those guys made life living hell for the Rougeaus. And I don't even know anything about the Rougeaus, who was right or wrong, who started it. I'm just saying, it's pro wrestling, it's high school cafeteria, and it's stupid cliques.
Mm-hmm. Is Triple H a 4 out of 10
Stevie
wrestler?
Richards defends Triple H and buries Bret Hart. Clickbait title.
4 out of 10. Is that fair from Bret to call Triple H a 4 out of 10 wrestler? I mean, the most famous of quotes, I guess, on interviews.
Yeah, I guess you can say basically Hunter was the guy who worked with the guy who drew money. And anybody that could potentially draw money, like Rocky, Hunter, and Shawn. And if you notice with Young Rock, there is a Triple H in Young Rock, but there's no Shawn Michaels in any episode of the Young Rock. So they must have made peace to some extent, but Rocky definitely, for some reason, Shawn, with his personality and whatever demons he had back then, treated Rock a lot worse. And I think that Young Rock, Triple H in it, Shawn Michaels not in it, tells a bigger story.
There is a photo of Shawn and Rock talking like in the 2010s, like one of the backstage photos, but yeah. I think the last they had worked together was Shawn was a was a special guest referee, and then I think Shawn super kicked Rock or hit him too hard, and then when they got to the back, Shawn said, "Well, if you can't take that, you don't belong in the business." So Dwayne double-legged him or something and tried to beat him up in the backstage. So
I don't think Rocky has to try. I don't think he has to try.
No, probably not. I don't think Shawn's ever won a fight, and I have been doing my research on these things. Right, let's get to the main event.
I am just like Shawn Michaels after all. Thank God.
Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins versus CM Punk, main event, night 1. The biggest main event in WrestleMania history that had literally nothing on the line. Like the first since WrestleMania 1, maybe.
Oh, yeah, Paul Heyman on the line. The Sophie's Choice, the prom queen. I know.
Why are they all fighting over Paul again?
We're still trying to figure this out. Hey, but I'll say this right off the bat, 5 Koreas out of 5. Excellent. These triple threat matches, and we're going to get to night 2 because the girls did the same exact thing. These triple threat matches can either go very right or easily very wrong. This entire match could have won because you always have to figure out where the third guy is. The simplest solution, throw one guy out, keep one guy out, have 2 guys in, keep knocking the guy off the apron. That's the easy independent wrestling way to do it, or even some TV wrestling. These guys, the timing, hitting moves, even if you were prostituting your finishes, which is what WrestleMania is all about, the way they went into it and just, from just teasing or going around each other's moves and having a guy grab another guy with the third guy, hitting those 2 guys or one of them. And it could have been a clumsy match, a very clumsy match, or even more importantly, looking like a very choreographed match. I know there was a bit of choreography to it, but the way nobody was waiting 5, 10, 15 seconds to be caught on the outside. You disagree with this. I can tell by your face already. But
it's not up to me to disagree. It's your show.
I want you to disagree because what I'm looking at is when you're looking at a triple threat match, especially if it's in the main event, and let's face it, this has been telegraphed for weeks. I think I called it last week that either something's going to happen with Rollins doing the job because he held whatever up or he did something, or Paul's going to turn and then Rollins. I assume to be a nut shot because that's the easiest thing for a non-worker to do. And the first one was so sloppy and they didn't catch it. The second one was good on Reigns, but the one on Punk was kind of rushed a little bit. But the match and the business that the match did, number one, Punk didn't win, but he has a new storyline. Reigns didn't win, but he has a new storyline. Rollins did win and now has a new storyline. Paul was getting stale and will probably continue to be stale, but he's talking for Seth Rollins now. So he has a whole new 10 to 15 year run with the ladies and gentlemen, this, that, whatever introduction he's going to do for the next however long. But the match itself, for a triple threat especially, was about as tightly booked as you can get and creatively hurt nobody.
The triple threat from night 2 was better. I think belt to belt, I thought the women did a great job. Here's the thing. It's such a Paul Heyman match, and I know I'm in the minority, but I was just like, I'm so sick of people kicking out finishes. It's so lazy. And the thing is, it's like you don't even have to kick out the finishes. It's a triple threat match. You can just keep breaking up each other's pins. I think that's about as worn out a pro wrestling cliche that needs to go. I hate the finisher kick out. What's the point of them?
Well, you know what it is. I was going to get to this before. WrestleMania is just another show because everybody's been kicking out of finishes all year round. The sets, the production, there's really not much of an upgrade from SmackDown or Raw at this point with the production, the cameras, the sets, the pyro, the LED screens. It used to be TVs were pretty intimate, even during Raw with the Industrial Titan. But when you had a WrestleMania or a big pay-per-view, the set no TV could ever touch that set. But now people are a little spoiled that all year round you're getting great cameras, great production, audio, video, pyro. Like that's why that I feel like the WrestleMania doesn't feel as special anymore. The worst part of this match was the Sophie's Choice with Paul Heyman. That's it. But it was a necessary Sophie's Choice. That was the worst part because they have to drive a storyline because there's no title that any 3 guys can shoot for right now unless you shoehorn them all the way into it. I'm looking at it from the business standpoint. Nobody got hurt physically or creatively, and now all 3 guys have something to drive them outside of a championship to keep them over.
Yeah, I know I'm in the minority. I know loads of people love this match. It's just that it's not only that they did the finisher kick out thing, which you expect at WrestleMania, they started it so early. I think that's probably what bugged me. It's like they were doing it 15 minutes in, and then it was nothing but finishers, kick outs, etc. Paul Heyman, why is he so valuable to have in the corner? Because he doesn't actually do anything during the match. I wrote in the notes, it's like, well, he's not like Bobby Heenan or Jimmy Hart, where he actively, turns the tide for the wrestler he's managing during the match. He just stands there and does nothing. So why is it so important for him? If you I hate to say, looking at it logically, it could be anyone. I mean, it's not like Paul Heyman's in great shape and great to have in your corner. He's a big fat walrus. That's it. So why is it so important that he goes with whoever he's going with? That was the other thing that was a tiny bit of a disconnect for me.
Well, also, you got 3 guys that can talk. Usually
that is also true.
Yeah, who are you going to talk for? How are you going to elevate them when they can already cut their own promos? Whatever the material is, they can all talk. Here's the problem with the match, too. It's still a 5 careers. Hey, what are you, smartass? But when you do that, you are actually making Paul more of a focus than the actual 3 guys killing each other in the ring. That I have a problem with. I mean, you might as well put him in a shark cage over the ring or did some Memphis stuff. But it's amazing that the guy who can talk and the guy, nothing compared to what he could do, in my opinion. This is so paint by numbers, his promos and his facial expressions actually, I believe, make the match more of a parody and a meme than a serious type thing. The big eyes and the look and the overacting, it's way, way too much for that. The real Paul Heyman, the hat, trench coat Paul Heyman, that's a dude, that's an evil genius. They don't present Paul as an evil genius anymore. They present him as a cartoon character. And that's it. Say the thing. He's the dial that you pull the string and it says the 3 or 4 sayings.
Well, what's the best thing for him now then? So he's with Seth. Seth can talk. I actually thought I like him best with Punk because I think there's a charm to having a manager who is just as good as a talker as their charge, almost like Bobby Heenan and Rick Rude, for example.
Yeah, but the rest of the family couldn't talk. They tried. Yeah. Rude was the only one.
Yeah, but you know that exactly. It's like you don't need to not be able to cut an interview to have a manager, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but when you have a manager, even if you can talk, then you got to figure out, well, am I going to say the last line, which obviously most times Rick Rude would say the last line, or start Heenan back to Rude for the third act of the promo. It's strange. I don't know what Paulie offers behind the scenes. My assumption is he offers and contributes creatively behind the scenes, or he's the agent for this match because he's right there in there. That would make sense. But I couldn't tell you. Right now, there's a ton of people that could use a Paul Heyman, like advocate promo type thing, but maybe they did the Curtis Axel thing. They dipped into the Cesaro thing quickly here and there. That didn't work out.
They ruined Cesaro with that.
No,
he
but
was
I'm
great
saying
with Dutch.
I know, but what I'm saying is Paul did get put in a position twice with people to try to elevate them, and maybe they just said after 3 weeks, doesn't work, we'll just put them with top guys.
Thing is like he was called Curtis Axel. It's like it didn't work out on week 1, so I mean it was never going to work. Right, let's go to night 2. Stephanie McMahon opens up and says WWE is family. You've heard that?
Oh, I've heard that. Especially with the release. I mean, and my family is pretty dysfunctional, so I was like, yeah, you are like my family. So it's easy. Stephanie, oh man, they should have I thought they were going to throw her new show, Stephanie at Steph's house or whatever, up on the Titantron for 3 hours.
She's creeping me out, Stephanie. She seems to be everywhere. She was even, on the entrance, the WrestleMania set reveal. And then she walked out and did the thing. And it's like, she's everywhere at the moment. Did I send you the... this was like the actual art they came out with. They had like some warped version of Stephanie as like a cartoon holding a WWE title belt. It didn't look anything like her.
No, you never sent that to me. And please don't. I have enough. No, I'm still getting over the wax statue.
Oh, well, I best not then. I mean, don't want to add to your therapy bills. Right, let's go straight to the opening match. Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair. Another triple threat match, but I mean, once again, I know I'm in the minority. I thought it was way the better one.
Well, in a lot of ways it was, because I think the expectation for the Punk, Rollins, and Reigns match was up there. But when we watch something like this based on TV, you're expecting Hot Wheels feet. You're expecting all these different things to happen. We did not get that. These girls wrestle like guys. and they had the same amount that they had to be in certain places. But I think these girls are the best ones on the you have Rhea, you have Bianca, you have Io Sky. There's lots of girls that are right there. But the combination of these three in here, I've never seen any of these three girls say, okay, there's four corners, but I need to be in that corner. Let's turn it around and let's scrum. There was none of that in this match. This was literally a great match, a 5-Korea match by eliminating things, not adding things, eliminating the bad habits, eliminating trying to do too much, relying equally 33, 33, 33, and a third, Scott Steiner math. Doing all that, they had the perfect match. Now, the only thing I don't like from night 2, and we'll get to the match that followed this one, was that the finish wasn't special after the second 4-way match or the second multi-person match. Because the finish was basically one girl on top of the other, then Io Sky moonsaults, covers, 1, 2, 3.
What do you make of Io Sky winning? Because the entire story going into this was that Io Sky was the afterthought. And then when they would do these, get all three of them in the ring to discuss this or sign contracts or whatever, it would always be Io Sky getting the upper hand. And then she wins at WrestleMania as well, which I'm not sure I would have predicted that.
I kind of thought that just by why, at the end of those segments when Io Sky shined on Rhea and Bianca, I was like, okay, I'm not sure. But everything leading up to that, the Seth Rollins, all the stuff has happened between Paul, Reigns, and Punk, and Rollins just standing back. I'm like, oh, they're going to obviously do the turn, and Rollins is going to go over. You get that feeling of the pattern. This here, sometimes, if you're not sure, especially I believe this was booked right for one reason, many reasons, but one main reason. Io Sky, Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair, but mainly Rhea and Bianca. Who can afford to do the job if the other goes over? How about if neither go over and you continue with Io Sky, who needs the belt to get more over? Rhea and Bianca right now they have a singles match. They can go off on each other. Winner gets a title shot at SummerSlam, is my prediction. But this was an excellently booked match, 5 Koreas, and it was choreographed, but the elimination of all the things, or most of the things, that made it look choreographed is what made this one of the best women's matches I've ever seen, and one of the best matches on WrestleMania.
Well, you say they eliminated nearly everything. Was there a couple of things left in that you picked up on?
Well, waiting, and that's just a side effect of you got 3 people in the ring. There is a positioning thing you got to be aware of. Even if there is 4 corners, where's that third person? Where's the person? If I am the third person, I'm on the outside. When do I come back in? What do I do there? But they were crushing each other. That finish was about as real. That was worse than the Tiffany Stratton knees up moonsault. And the only criticism I have about that, work every match like you're working. Don't be a mark. Be a mark for where you're at, but still, you're in control. I guarantee you, Tiffany Stratton would have, I don't know, how could I say it? That's not the match to think of. I would think of this one because they did take care of each other way too much, as you would say, with Charlotte and Tiffany. But this match here, it's like we still have to work tomorrow or Friday. Let's be careful. We can lay stuff in. There's going to be dangerous spots. Some may knock the wind out of you, but let's not ring each other's bells and give each other a concussion. That's where it gets a little egregious. Excellent match, though. I get your feeling. I would say in some ways this was better than the Punk, Rollins, and Reigns with the Paul Heyman, Sophie's Choice thing. But then again, I feel like there's higher stakes in the three-way dance with the guys than the girls.
Yeah,
especially was on a title change.
Match.
What's
yeah,
that?
There should have been a number 1 contenders match. I don't know why it wasn't. The guys one, I should say.
There should have been some stipulation. You know what it could have been too? An elimination. And then even if Rollins did the job, came back, they did the turn, and Punk goes over, and now they want Punk with them. And now Rollins hates it, but Paul wants them to be a team, and they have to do, hey, you got to be a tag team. And of course they win the tag belts. You know, the biggest enemies who can't work together trounce over the New Day.
With the women's triple threat, what I liked about it most was they just got on with it. Just get out there and get on with it. It's a long show. And I'll tell you what, both of these nights of WrestleMania, they bounded along a lot better than the average Raw or especially SmackDown. So I don't know what it was. There was barely any more matches. I know they were given longer entrances and a bit more time in the matches, but it didn't feel like it dragged, especially when I was forwarding through the Fanatics commercials. Of course.
That's the point about TV. TV should be attention deficit disorder TV. It should be shorter matches. You have enough people on the roster on both brands. Do it that way. And then when you have longer WrestleMania matches with kickouts, they've been conditioned for a year to say, this is special. I'm going to see kickouts. I'm going to see, you're paying for all that. But if you're getting it for free for the other 363 days out of the year, what does it mean?
Mm-hmm. Next up, apart from the fact that Flavor Flav was in the crowd, that made me happy. Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre. And the first thing I wrote was Chekhov's gun. They set up tables on the outside. So I don't know why they do this. If you set up a table, especially a table on the outside or some sort of apparatus that you know is going to be used, you know it's going to be used. So therefore, every near fall until that is used is completely useless because no one believes it. Am I right
I agree
there?
with that. Well, I kind of agree with that, but I think also reaching under, the tables can be a distraction if they're not used right away or they're not brought out until right before being used. But I would say this, these guys can work, man. This is great. And the only reason I'm taking Gurria's off of this match is the same as the other one, creative. You literally you did a Tony Gurria. Hey, you're big and you're big. You're going to have a WrestleMania match. It's like you two guys can work. We don't need too much. We only need to take great care. It doesn't need to be vignettes. You got the eye patch thing from the windshield, but you didn't give it enough time for Drew to say he was blind and then do the Sandman, rip it off and attack Damian Priest and leave him bloody the week before WrestleMania. Drew could have been, I have to retire. He could have went the whole gambit just from that eye thing, right? And we would have had something at WrestleMania. And you know what? Just in theory, because it never works out. And in modern times, I don't know if it would make sense. When Drew's eye was hurt and Drew said basically something to the effect that you almost took my sight, they should have had the Prince of Darkness match or the blind match with the hoods. Storytelling, old school, it could translate horribly in 2025. But strictly, if you're going to do the eye thing, you got to at least do the fake blindness and the jump before WrestleMania, or the match involves both men not being able to see.
You know, Jake and Rick Martel did that on WrestleMania 7. And
Was it 7 or 6?
7. Promise you,
okay.
7. Because I had that tape when I was a kid, and I had the TV recording of it, not the VHS tape that they sold afterwards, because they cut out the flub, the blooper, the botch, where Jake puts the hood on, and then he reaches under it and scratches his face, and you can see his finger through the hood.
Oh.
So I always remember that, if nothing else.
The lights are going to be much brighter at WrestleMania 41. They probably could just see it looks, it's like a wicker basket on their head.
Yeah, they've got like some magic,
I take it back.
Magician's kind of sack kind of thing, I guess. There's something specifically I want to talk to you about here in the match, and it's not the match itself, it's Damian Priest, and I don't know if I'm just a naysayer or something like I know people within the business who rate Damian Priest incredibly highly, but as a fan watching, I'm one of those people who just, I don't get it. I don't get it with Priest. I think he's really dry. He doesn't connect with me at all on an emotional level, whereas someone like Drew is just an absolute champion on social media and his interviews and his character and stuff like that. So in my mind, I see Priest way below Drew as far as championship material or, main event material. Am I being too harsh? How do you see it?
Well, you're being very objective, but once again, it's not Damian Priest's fault. He carried a lot of stuff when he came in. He had the arrow gimmick and everything, good presentation, and it was during the COVID era, so he had to really work in front of no people. That's tough. So with that being said, the Judgment Day thing was super flat because Edge was the leader. They should have just went their own way right after that and not tried to do what they're still trying to do. Damian Priest is a big dude, has a great look, but guess who else had that for years and years and years, and they did nothing with him? Drew McIntyre. It has to take. Drew found lightning in the bottle from an accident, giving Punk the Future Shock DDT, tore his tricep, and then ran with it. Priest has not had the opportunity to fight or flight based on a situation. Drew might be in the same spot as Damian Priest, but he was allowed to show his real personality as kind of a very entertaining heel to the point where people like him now. But Damian Priest, it's not his fault. He has to have the right situation to capitalize on, or once again, another theme, once again, for creative to take care of Damian Priest. Man, that was a tough match to watch, though. It was a street fight, so there we go with maybe that's why the girls, Tiffany and Charlotte, didn't have a hardcore match or a Falls Count Anywhere. But man, Priest, especially throwing that chair, I don't know what happened there where that could have been what went wrong, where Drew just didn't sell the chair. He must not have thought it looked like it hit him because he hit him with the boot right after that.
Yeah, they did a replay, and it really looked like it missed him. So I think he just, as you would say, call an audible and just went through with the Claymore anyway.
Well, they must have had
the right thing to do.
They must have had a good secondary angle at the time and threw it in replay, because if Drew had sold that, I would have been none the wiser from the hard camera or whatever that he didn't get, or a handheld thing from the corner, one of those. And it looked like it hit him at least in the shoulder. It looked ugly. It looked like it was coming at him sideways, like Wade Barrett really covered that.
Now, I want to go back to Priest briefly. So I saw an interview with him. He was still the Raw World Champion at the time, and I think he was walking around New York, I guess, and going to a baseball field or something like that. And it's one of those things where, okay, you're out of character. Don't yawn at me. Sorry, we're yawning at each other.
WrestleMania. Oh.
No, every single time the other person talks, the other one's yawning. Just we're both tired, what can I say? Yeah, Priest was doing a interview like at a baseball field or walking towards it, something like that, and I thought, this is your time to, really let out your inner personality, whatever. I thought he was just as boring as he was on screen. I don't think that Damian Priest has that next gear of larger-than-life personality to attract someone like me to him, as far as, a fan to a wrestler. That's my big worry about. He might be fine in the ring and everything, but he hasn't got that extra gear to turn it up. It's like Karrion Kross. He does. He's way more entertaining away from wrestling than he is in wrestling. We know he can do things. Damian Priest hasn't shown me anything, anywhere that he can.
Well, I mean, I'll get back to Drew. When he was doing it, when he went on his run to become WWE champion, he was a babyface, but he was about sort of flat as you can be. The story was great, childhood dream. And look at him just a few years later. It just takes that one thing for Damian Priest. I agree, but in the vein of what he's doing, I mean, he's still special. Just the size alone, the airport, walking through the airport, he's special. He's like Rey Mysterio and other people. He still appeals to demographics that the company want people, Latin American people, Mexican people. They want them to watch the show. And I think the disconnect with him that I never like is when every single wrestler that can speak Spanish and English does the Spanglish and then the English version. And that, to me, during his promos is a disconnect.
One more thing, right? So when I mentioned at the beginning of this little segment, said that tables were laid out by Drew McIntyre, and he did a great thing because the camera's right there, and then Drew looks right in the camera and starts talking to the camera.
I wish he would have said real wood, Crimea River.
Yeah, it's real particle board, Crimea sawdust. And Damian Priest, when he goes through inevitably to lead to the finish, and this wasn't the first time this happened at WrestleMania, I can't remember the first time, as he went backwards into the tables, he held his head like that, like he was reclining. I remember when we were talking about tables and how to go through them, you said that was maybe the worst thing you could do. Now, Does this depend on if it's more than one table? Does it depend if it's in the ring or out the ring, how you take that bump?
I just feel like if you're taking a bump, it's like if you want to, all right, take a back bump off a shoulder block are you going to reach back with your hands over your shoulders and grab your head as you're taking the bump? Now, after the bump, you grab your head. It's just not, how can I say, it's not as safe. There's no safe way to go through a table. Bob Holly will tell you that. Stuff can go wrong. But you want to be braced this way because what if he tears a rotator cuff? What if something happens and his tricep does tear? What if with that hand back there, he breaks his wrist or his hand? Little stuff like that. You're not concerned with this part of your body or the hands going back. You're concerned with the meat, the back of your body going through the table and the kid table separating. That's all anybody's watching. I don't know why people choose to protect their heads like that because you're already tucking your chin. So yeah, I'm mystified by that. I don't think it's the best idea because you will get a Rey Mysterio type injury from almost absolutely nothing where nobody can really look at it and say, well, how did he tear his tricep if he had his hand? Well, that's how. Bicep, tricep, rotator cuff.
Next, I've just got to mention one celebrity. Tony Hinchcliffe was in the audience. He got booed unmercifully, and I'm really happy because not only is he tragically unfunny, he has ruined every single Joe Rogan interview where he's had a wrestler by just being the salacious B. Crumb to Jabba the Hutt. Yeah, I've got a fact. He's really irritating. And then he ruined that Raw segment as well. Can't stand him. Next one, IC title, 4-way. I didn't even write down who was in it. Dominic Mysterio, Finn Balor, Penta, and Bron Breakker. I wrote no notes on this because I just sat back and enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too. This is definitely the finish that made sense.
Oh, I'm sorry. I messed up. Guerrillas for Damian and Drew.
Guerrillas for Damian and Drew is going to be 4 guerrillas.
4 guerrillas, my
take
apologies.
Take one off for creative. I take none off for talent on this show. All right, let's get to the IC 4-way. You wrote Dominic predictably wins by pinning Finn. Okay? I didn't see that coming.
Really?
In other words, no. I mean, it's like you can overthink it and say, well, he's the least likely choice, so he's the most likely choice. I get that. But they had not pushed Dominic in their mind, the office that I'm familiar with, to let him win at this point. He had enough heat. He was, he was Dirty Dom and all that stuff. Wasn't I the one, however many weeks ago, that said Dominic, they should have put the world title on Dominic because he had so much heat? Mm-hmm. You remember that? Mm-hmm. So this is obviously a test for Dominic to carry the IC title as a heel, but it was great. The only thing I will say about this finish is exactly what the girls did. Different moves, the same exact, somebody covering somebody, gets crunched, Io Sky with the moonsault, Dominic with the frog splash, and the pin. There needs to be better checks and balances for these finishes. If they were on separate nights, but they were on the same show. Did you notice that?
Yeah. I want to get to the finish because you said, because I did write predictably wins. The reason I said predictably is because it only made sense for either Dominic or Finn to win. Because that's the only way that there's going to be an interesting story going beyond WrestleMania, is the sort of disillusion of Judgment Day, I think. So that's why it's sort of, for me anyway, I thought that was the only real way to go.
Well, this didn't necessarily, this is an example where nobody really got hurt with the finish. Didn't hurt Penta because he wasn't involved. Didn't hurt Braun, he wasn't involved. It's solely on Dominic and Finn. Another way to go, even though I'm happy Dominic won, he deserves it, and I think it's going to be good heat on the Intercontinental title, and we can get a new layer of his character based off of this. I would still have liked maybe something to where Dominic cost Finn to lose, and Braun or even Penta, who I think Penta could use the belt right now and it'd be great, could have done that. That's an alternative thing. That's a 6-1. Half a dozen of the other. The finish was fine. The storyline coming from the finish is totally good. But do you see how you can make it where now there's a title and a storyline involved? There's a personal issue and a title. In other words, Dominic still could have won the IC title, but if Braun or Penta won it, Penta would have been the one I would have picked. Or out of this, you had more interest with the 3 guys chasing Penta than within their own storyline to go off for a little bit as well when they win the title. I'm thinking about longer term business for this.
How many guerrillas?
5.
Good 4-way.
What's that?
It was a good four-way.
Yeah, I put it up. And people might be like, well, you can't give them all perfect matches. We're talking about in my criteria. Going into the match, the hype of it, this was pretty good hype, not the best. The actual finish, which made sense, although there were alternatives, but this was equally as good. And now, all four guys have strong business going out of here. You're interested to see what Braun does next and who he interacts with. You're interested to see who Penta interacts with. Maybe he interacts with Braun. Maybe something happens. But now you have Judgment Day with that, and then Dom with the IC belt. So you have multitude of things to spin off of this match. That's why I give it 5 Koreas.
So next on the agenda, we have Randy Orton versus mystery opponents. It was originally going to be Kevin Owens, and a neck injury that was revealed during an MRI. Sort of Owens, there was no way he could do it, essentially. They just said, no, you can't get it fixed later. You have to get it fixed now. That took him out of WrestleMania. So there was a lot of speculation on who Randy Orton's opponent was on SmackDown on Friday. Randy said that he's going to be ready. He's going to have just the right amount of baby oil on his body, waiting for whoever's going to come through that curtain or whatever that sliding door thing was. And out comes Joe Hendry. I'd considered Joe Hendry. I didn't think it'd be him, though. I thought it'd be Jeff Cobb. What about you? Who did you think?
I thought it would be Jeff Cobb because we have to really further that Samoan storyline with the bloodline and other people. And you bring in Jeff Cobb, I have to say it. I've been around them most of my life and career. Can you name one bad Samoan wrestler or anybody of Polynesian descent? They're all awesome.
Ooh. Was it Manu?
Yeah, but
he was in for like 2008 for a second.
Manu was part of Legacy with Orton, DiBiase, and Cody Rhodes. But dude, he I don't know what happened to him in WWE, but he was still good. It just didn't translate. It's kind of like Tama Tonga. The twins, Haku's kids, they're really good in Japan, but for some reason it doesn't feel like their style's fitting in too much in WWE, but they're still really good workers. I've never been around a bad one. So Jeff Cobb was my guess just because we just needed great workers. And when you framed it last time saying he's almost 40 years old, he gets to make that money, I was really happy and hopeful it would be Jeff Cobb, but Joe Hendry deserves that spot too, to be in that. Not this exact one we're going to talk about, but he deserves to make some money.
It was Rusev as well, and we were wondering who it was going to be. I don't know if it was me and you or Dutch and I.
Oh, I didn't guess right.
For some reason, I completely even think about Rusev. He would have been perfect as well, but no. There you go.
No, I didn't even think of Rusev, but did he re-sign with the company?
Yes. Apparently Lana, or CJ Perry, has been spotted here and around, and she's been signed to a Legends deal, but I don't know if she's been re-signed to the company, but Rusev we think has. But no Jeff Cobb, no Rusev, it is Joe Hendry. Someone said his name and he appeared.
What do you think? I'm going to let you go first.
No, you go first.
Well, it's a shame. This is kind of like the Rey Fenix thing. You have a guy that's featured, especially a TNA World Champion. Obviously, there's a working relationship with WWE. The thought of the company, both companies, I should say, maybe even Joe Hendry, I get to be a part of WrestleMania. It's great exposure. No matter what happens, it's great exposure. I will say this about the match. And looking at Joe Hendry in the ring with Randy Orton, obviously Randy, 20 WrestleManias. His 20th WrestleMania, he's comfortable. He's found his character. He's found himself. And it literally has fun out there. No matter what, even if it's a blood thing, there's little parts where Randy, the inner child comes out, the inner wrestling fan, and you can tell. That smoothness, that comfort, the poise, the presence, that's the only thing that overshadowed Joe Hendry. In the ring physically, looking at both of them, Joe Hendry reminds me of a Drew McIntyre type gimmick or a guy. Starting out, he's got the thing, but there needs to be a gear change and some kind of more of an edge to Joe Hendry because they cheer for him and all that stuff. It's fun, but you're the world champion now. So hopefully after this loss, like I said, he can have more of an edge, a different character, something featured differently on NXT or WWE. But yeah, I mean, what you said is absolutely true, and I'll pass it to you. They just he just got his ass whooped by Randy Orton in a very short WrestleMania match. What does that do for him, TNA, and everybody else?
It's not even that. I don't know if it's just his presentation. I mean, it works in TNA, it works in NXT, but he's got the potential to work on WWE's main roster in a meaningful role if he tweaks a couple of things. And I think there needs to be some tweaking. I know it's the most overused thing. I think he needs to hit the gym a little bit more. Just needs to be a bit wider, that kind of thing. Because when you're talking body types, I mean, Randy Orton's huge. We know that, and since he came back from injury, he's massive. And say what you want about how he got there, he's huge, and he looks like a superstar. With Joe next to him, he looked like a TNA wrestler in WWE, which I know is what he is. But I mean, I sort of think a costume change for Joe, just being a bit bigger for Joe, and also not leaning into the goofiness too much, because obviously the intro's great, the song's hilarious and everything. People really gravitate towards it. But I sort of feel he was doing it too much in that short match, where he just came across as the goofy guy from the other company and not WWE caliber. And it's just the small changes that would work out for him, I think.
It actually felt like, to me, the U.S. title open challenge on Raw or SmackDown, and the NXT wrestler comes out and shows they can hang with the superstar, but they don't follow through. This is WrestleMania. I get exactly what you're saying.
That was a squash, pretty much.
It was. No, I'm saying, but on a TV episode where a new NXT guy or a debuting person comes out, holds their own a little bit, and then ends up putting somebody over in under 5 minutes in this case, something like that. It was 4 or 5 minutes. That's what I'm saying. This was booked pretty wrong. To have a guy that you want to maybe feature, or maybe he'd come over when you finally buy the TNA library or the promotion and they go out of business. This will be the one of the guys you want. There's a famous saying, and it's kind of done cynically and sarcastically in the locker room, but I mean this in the most respectful way, but also in the most objective way. Joe Hendry, say his name, he appears, the music, people sing along, they cheer, he's smiling, and then the bell rings. Now what are you? And that's what you're saying, right? You come out, and also this is the trick. Joe Hendry's been doing this on the indies over there in England and Europe and everywhere before he even got the TNA.
Yeah, he's 36. He's not a young man in the game. No, he's not,
but he was doing it with Drew back on the indies, singing the songs. He always did a parody song for who he was wrestling in the entrances. He's always done that. The problem is, here's the double-edged sword. That literally got him to the dance. But now you're on a real, in my estimation, in 2025, with people's attention spans, you're on a short pitch count to really tweak. Like you said, you need to tweak sooner rather than later before the people really get tired of it. Because that's what it is. This dude can work. I've watched his stuff outside of even TNA. He can work, and he's not a small guy. He looks small next to Randy, but he's a huge guy, comparatively speaking, especially in TNA. But he needs today to figure out what to give them next so they can go earlier, like Bill Belichick and the Patriots, our American football team. Better to let go of a guy, in this case a character, too early rather than too late. If they do it too late, then it looks like, oh, you just did it because it was stale. People kind of see through that. But he has nothing. But he could be another, just like Damian Priest. Joe Hendry could be another Drew McIntyre. And dare I say it, Joe Henry's more connected in social media and all this other stuff. He might find that thing easier than a Damian Priest.
I don't think he needs to betray the previous character to make it in WWE, because obviously WWE is so interested in having Joe Hendry on. He's on Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, for goodness sake. But just you talking about, he does a different song for every person who's wrestling, etc., like that. Do you know what it reminds me of? And do you know what he could fall into the trap of being? Lanny Poffo. He had a different poem for every city. He put the effort in. Mm-hmm. But you know what? He didn't have that extra bit of presentation. There was something missing with Lanny Poffo that obviously Randy Savage's brother had.
Yeah.
And I so want the best for Joe Hendry, is what I'm saying. But I think with some small tweaks, and I think also maybe just a mite bit more seriousness in the matches, to just make himself look more threatening. Because as you say, he's not a small guy. Randy Orton's just huge. But yeah, I think some minor changes to Joe, and he could be a real contender.
I have a one-to-one analogy, and unfortunately, it doesn't bode well for Joe Hendry if he continues.
Okay.
What's that?
No, okay, yeah, I didn't think it doesn't bode well for Joe Hendry.
It doesn't. This is the blueprint. We've already seen it. One word I'm going to say to you right now, and it's going to click. Elias.
Yeah. But Joe's got a natural charm to him.
Yeah, but then the bell rings. If you're still the same dude that's singing songs in the middle of the ring or say his name, he appears, then and he's TNA champion. So does this loss really hurt whoever the TNA diehard fans are to say our world champion lost? The only thing I would do is take the belt off him right away. To have him going on a losing streak, and then that changes that character just a little bit.
Yeah. He didn't just lose, he lost in 3 minutes, 9 seconds, is all I'll say.
Oh, that's a long time for me.
Hey, but also, nothing about your private life now, Steve.
Give me a 3-minute squash match on WrestleMania. What are you talking about?
Oh, you were talking about wrestling? Oh, okay.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Hey,
what are you, a pervert?
How many Gurrias for this?
Gurrias for this? 1.
Yeah. Here's the thing.
I wouldn't give any, actually, because it did nobody any. It did nobody. I'm going to give it 0.
Yeah. The Rock. Guess what he also did? He also played guitar, did those great segments. He was still The Rock. It's like just doing that kind of character has no bearing on
but
how
he
you'll
was
succeed in.
He was The Rock that did it after being The Rock already.
Yeah.
And he just did it because he felt like doing it, because it was fun. And guess what? Even as a heel, the people loved it. So he didn't exactly do anything. He didn't do it the right way. He didn't get heat with it, And
oh no,
you can never hate The Rock. Even as a heel, people probably still loved him. So I just feel like I'm going to go back to 1 because the guys worked hard. It's physical. The fact that Randy can come back from any injury, have his 20th WrestleMania, and this solely relies on creative. Every single match, I believe, when I take Gurrias away, it relies on creative. Or lays on creative's doorstep.
Next match, AJ Styles versus Logan Paul. It just seemed perfectly serviceable. Do you think just the audience was tired at this point because it just didn't get any reaction? And I don't know what it was. Didn't do it.
Well, when Logan Paul adds 9 camera angles into his match and he has to get all that in, and then some random NPC character named Jeff comes to sort of interfere.
What was that about? I even wrote in the thing, Jeff.
Yeah, this is your radio DJ on an indie show that invites the other radio DJ to interfere and set up a tag match. 2 DJs. That was kind of a DJ voice. But then you get to the thing I don't understand. The match, like, perfectly serviceable. Logan Paul still light years ahead of anybody even with experience. Comfortable in his role, does unique things. Obviously, a social media presence. AJ's just AJ. Anybody AJ works, he's going to make look like $1 million. He looks like $1 million. And then another guy I feel like is worth millions of dollars comes out and has a strange Sean O'Hare devil on your shoulder moment with AJ. And it's so misplaced and downright almost goofy. It just, I like Karrion Kross personally and as a fellow wrestler and what I watch him and what he can do. Speaking of TNA, watch what he did in TNA and see what he can really do. This whole thing of coming out and what was the brass knuckles about? What was it? Didn't he just...
Alan.
Yeah.
He just used these brass knuckles, Alan. It's like, what was that about?
Yeah, didn't he...
Alan.
But didn't he also wrestle AJ and AJ beat him and then he helped Logan Paul with the beatdown?
Yeah, but Karrion Kross was dressed like AJ Styles. So he's pulling your thing from 99.
Hey.
Could have come out in a Dude Love outfit.
They didn't even do a sunset flip. They did everything wrong. I don't get it. And this is a guy that's so wasted. I would dare say, Joe Henry, fine. Karrion Kross coming out to in his hometown in Vegas and wrestling Randy Orton, I feel like would have been a bigger match for Randy, and it would have done a lot more for Karrion Kross.
I think this is 4 different times now. Forget the match now. This is 4 different times Karrion Kross, or 4 different characters Karrion Kross, Killer Kross has had in WWE, was Karrion Kross. He was brought up from NXT. He had a good NXT run. I remember some people at the time complaining about it because he was so dominant, but then he goes to WWE. And do you know how they announced the NXT champion finally on WWE Raw? They announced his debut on Raw while Raw was happening on Twitter. He, on the main roster, has been crapped on from the highest of heights for years from WWE creative. So there was that. They killed him off immediately. They fired him. They brought him back. They had him and Scarlett doing whatever. This weird faux mysticism kind of character that never clicked. Then you had the Final Testament, which never clicked. And now you've got another character for Karrion Kross that's not clicking. But the thing is, he's an entertaining guy. It's like, why can't WWE figure something out for him that he's comfortable with?
My guess, I mean, outside of the office not politically favoring him, who does he have heat with, or who just doesn't like the way he looks or the way he acts? Because he seems to be a really decent dude. Somebody could bring the knives out. There's also be people feeling threatened by somebody like that. And else, you know, you got to think too, Kross does other stuff outside. He's great at filmmaking, producing, editing, all these different creative outlets that he had before. Those vignettes in TNA, I think he was responsible, hugely responsible for a lot of that. So don't do good, but don't do too good, and only do good if we tell you to do good. And also, you would have thought with Ron Simmons, when you put a helmet like that on somebody, it's the kiss of death. The old Greek Roman gladiator soldier. I mean, that the precedent was already there. I don't know why they keep trying to touch it. Hurts. Why do I keep touching it? It hurts. Why do I keep touching it? Poor dude, though. I want the best for that guy.
Karrion Kross was actually on Bloodsport, I think, the night before, or the night before the night before. I don't know if it was on Friday or Saturday, and he wrestled there and, you know, showing more personality and just being himself more. I don't know why they keep giving him this weird, somewhere in mysticism or, you know, some sort of Svengali kind of character. I don't think that suits him. And they seem to keep revolving around that kind of Bray Wyatt-ish kind of thing for him, and I just don't think it works.
Well, he'd be better off being Killer Kross again and being just a dark. Well, I think when WWE hears about a dark character, they immediately think we got to make Undertaker light out of somebody.
Right. Oh, Garcias.
For AJ Styles, Logan Paul?
Yep.
I'd probably give it right in the middle of the road, 2.5. There's nothing going into this. It was just kind of rushed, and you know, you have an AJ Styles who has a lot less WrestleManias in front of him than behind him. Why are you doing this? This is an AJ that should be right up there in the mix, doing incredible things at WrestleMania.
I knew that Logan Paul was going to win because he just debuted a new finisher, you know, the pulverizer thing. Yeah. And I knew that he wanted to do it at WrestleMania, so I figured he was going to win.
And guess what? Not many people can take that finish.
You know, well, that was going to be a what went right segment in the future. Is that yes, AJ Styles does it fantastically, but how many people can take that?
I wouldn't. It's too convoluted. I even think Kross's finish, whenever he's allowed to hit it once every 4 moons, his finish is convoluted. You know, especially for somebody like that. Logan Paul has a problem of doing way too many moves really, really well. That's a problem, good problem to have. You pick the finish that it might not be the safest, but just it doesn't take 2 to 3 steps to get into it. Hey, by the way, I'll put him in the ring with Braun Strowman. Try to give it to Braun Strowman. Try to give it to Damian Priest. Try to give it to Drew McIntyre. Try to see if Roman Reigns will take it. I'm just giving you eliminate your options to do things with everybody with that finish. You can actually react to the slogan, Paul. Please do.
There were a few celebrities I didn't mention. One, Colby Covington, who people may not realize. We'll talk about this in a future episode once again, but you've got an association with Colby Covington. from the late 2010s. Were you his fitness coach or one of his fitness coaches? Or
I did personal strength and conditioning coach. I was one of them.
there we go. So that is, I promise you, a future episode. We have to talk about that. And once again, one good celebrity, Dean Norris. Breaking Bad, love Breaking Bad, and apparently he's on. I can't remember the new Law and Order with Elliot Staber, Chris Maloney. But
Well, it was there's
brother.
the SVU. He was on that. Then he was in the Man of Steel movie. Then came back when the movie career kind of didn't work out for him. Now it's
Yeah, he was in Superman.
Mob Unit, right, or something like that.
No, it's not Mob Unit, is it?
Yes, yeah, Law and Order.
Like, Organized Crime.
Organized crime.
That's what it is. My brother always tries to get me into that. Anyway, and also Vanessa Hudgens was there as well. So anyway, next up, women's tag match. We'll be pretty quick on that. Lyra Valkyrie, Becky Lynch versus Liv Morgan, Raquel. And Becky Lynch was the surprise that everyone sort of guessed was coming because she made a big deal of saying, I'm definitely not wrestling at WrestleMania. And Becky Lynch got the pin. The only thing I took away from this is that feathers kept flying out of Lyra's hairdo.
I don't need it. I mean, what do you think about this? I'm going to ask you for the Gorilla rating.
It sort of defies rating. It took up time.
It was like right before the main event of Raw when they used to put the female matches on, right? It felt like it was just felt like a palate cleanser type match.
Yeah, but they had Becky Lynch coming back and stuff. But I was never the biggest Becky Lynch fan, I suppose. So it didn't really hit as hard with me than other people. But yeah, it was just a semi-main.
The entrance, the surprise,
get a drink.
The surprise of Becky Lynch returning was going to overshadow no matter what. You knew they were going to win, but really her coming back, that entrance, that's going to be played for the next however many weeks or months. That's all they wanted to get out of the match, and they did that. And yes, it's right before Cena and Cody, or before Austin comes out on the quad. So it was really there to kind of calm people down and get them ready for the main event, for the Ice Age finish, as you call it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it went a long time. But before the main event, in night one, Shawn Michaels came out and announced the supposed attendance. You know how WWE WrestleMania attendances go, especially. Night two was Steve Austin, and he not only came out to announce the attendance, he announced it after going on a rampage with the ATV. And this is very much what went wrong. Stevie, have you ever been on a quad bike?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I used to live in Connecticut. My friend had one, and they're pretty beefy things. They're wider than you think, and if you're going through, obviously, terrain that's not stable, everything could flip backwards on you. It's pretty... Yeah, there could have been potential what went wrong segment there, and there would be no what went wrong segments if that thing fell on me. So that could be a good thing for some people. Who knows? I remember I was laying under the ATV, doing a 67-minute speech.
Ozzy Osbourne fell afoul of one of them. They're great though. They're so much fun.
Okay, so we have the ATV here. I did not watch this part yet. This is a pure reaction. I did see.
Oh, you've not seen it? It's amazing.
All right, let's go. Oh, that's a smaller ATV than he's used to.
Yeah, but
oh, he's like, I docked my check. That's about 10 grand off my check.
Rewind it 2 seconds. He knocks a woman over.
Dude, this is almost the same spot where Carlito threw the part of the table that went into the crowd. Oh, she fell. Give her some T-shirts and tickets. Quick. ECW Arena.
Hang on, let's hold that back now. I mean, you didn't set her on fire.
Imagine if it lit the LED panel on fire all around. I think so. I don't think she got hurt. I think she was like, I'm looking at her face. She can't
zoom in on it. She's really angry.
You think so? I think she's like, oh my God, that's...
She stands back up. She stands back up and she's really annoyed. So play it through.
They knock her beer over? Oh, she's upset.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Dude, get out of there, Steve. Get out. She's mad. That woman had evil in her eyes. Holy, she was mad. I thought at first she was like, oh my God, it's Steve Austin. But she was like, "Oh my God, it's that son of a bitch, Steve Austin." I'm gonna. She had the Dreamer Paulie WrestleMania 17 look. Part 1, not the part 2. She was. Oh, he's like, I gotta get away from her. I'm not stupid.
So there's another bit after this on the same bit of video. So if you just scrub forward a few seconds, he goes back to her. Nick Khan is there, stood there, trying to calm her down, and she's still angry, as far as we can tell. So Steve Austin just says something, just forget it, and leaves.
Wow. Nick Khan, former usher at WrestleMania 9. Little documentary there. They showed Nick Khan as an usher. Yeah, 100%.
Oh, I've not seen the documentary yet.
WrestleMania 9 documentary they made. You know, they were in the parking lot at Caesar's Palace, and they highlighted Nick Khan was one of the ushers there. He was like an usher manager. He had a position at Caesar's, and he was there.
That's cool. I need to watch that.
That is very cool. I mean, obviously, Steve didn't mean to do it. I mean, I don't know. She just looked like she kind of got knocked back into her seat, not like, knocked over like the ATV just did that. I don't know. What would you? I mean, if that happens, like 99 times out of 100, if 999 out of 1,000, the people are going to be, yeah, aha. They're going to be like, oh my God, and start doing like the selfie thing. That was like that was like somebody who just said, I wonder, I'm a Raiders fan, but I'm wondering what's going on at Allegiant Stadium, and just sits in the front. Like, what's this all about?
Hey, do you know what it is, right? I think it's the same thing as WrestleManias 4 and 5. And bear with me a second. For 4 and 5, a lot of the people in the crowd were just casino people who weren't that interested, and they were just going to the show. And no one was really caring about anything until like the main event, pretty much, Hogan and Savage. I'm not saying that's the same thing, but those front row seats for both nights cost $15,000 each. And I think you're going to get a different type of person who must be a millionaire many times over to even consider spending that amount of money to do that. And you're going to get the more entitled person. She
looked like she was wearing like a Kurt Angle, Chad Gable, like USA type of sweat jacket. She looked like, dude, 15 grand. If you're a wrestling fan, which my guess is she's not a wrestling fan, because any wrestling fan that spent 15 grand is hoping to be run over by Steve Austin in an ATV and just sit there and, hey, where you took me to the hospital. Any wrestling fan would have literally given their right testicle to be in that spot. That's a moment, like, if you turn around, grab the camera, your friends were filming all that stuff and him apologizing, and you put that up on social media or YouTube, millions of views, easy.
Mm-hmm. Like, if that had happened to the green T-shirt guy who was front center and seems to be front center for every single WWE pay-per-view, at least he's probably a fan. He would have found that really funny. But no, she seemed like she was ready to sue somebody.
But it didn't really knock the wall over. It didn't knock her over. No. It just kind of put her back in her seat. And then I wasn't ready for that face. She had blood in her. Like, that's the look Tiffany and Charlotte should have had in their match.
Aha.
Aha. Hey, what are you doing with that ATV, you smartass? She was Gorilla. That's how Gorilla would react when I came back from my matches. Hey, what the hell? No sunset flip?
How many gorillas for that crash?
Oh, 5. I had 5 and an extra 5 for the reaction, which popped me. I'm mystified with all the factors of cost of ticket, seat placement. The biggest star possibly in wrestling history almost runs you over, and you don't see that as a moment to get your 15 grand worth out of it. Wow.
It may have been 20. I can't remember. I think there was 15 at like row 4, so it might have been 20 for both nights front row. Anyway, let's get to the main event. John Cena versus Cody Rhodes. And John Cena comes out first, right? So they've totally like rejigged his entrance to be more dark and more plain with, just regular Arial font. But that's not what I get out of this entrance, right? He comes through the sliding doors. The sliding doors open. He walks through. Then some chick runs out after him, and it's just like a stagehand who then just like runs around the corner and then sits in shot the entire time until the camera has to pan and turn around just to like crop her out. Did you notice this, or was it just me?
I noticed it. You know who I thought it was? Stephanie. Dressed
I
as
thought it
a
was Becky
stage age.
Lynch
They
or
can't help
someone.
themselves. Neither one of them. Yeah, I thought it was Stephanie.
That was nuts. That I cannot believe on the main event and someone
Wasn't
didn't like.
somebody walking by on another entrance when the door opened?
Really?
Somebody was walking by. Like, just, I was like, who's that? It's Simpsons. Who's that guy? Who's that girl right there?
Yeah. Nuts. Absolutely nuts, that one. Anyway, what do you think of Cena's entrance? Same song, walking to the ring, not running, but then they've just got the black plain aerial John Cena.
It had the ECW one night stand vibe that when he came out against Rob Van Dam. And I was hoping he would have the hat down and just do his thing like he did when he came out. He had the belt for that one, the spinner belt. But I liked it. I liked everything that Cena has done, although it's never been explained. He's tried his damnedest to make it make some sort of sense. And I'll say right off the bat, like they were doing their dual chants at Cena and everything. But at the same time, I noticed when they were cutting the people and as the match went on, it's the same as Roman Reigns. Now they love Cena. Now Cody's staleness and the interest in Cena is apparent during this match.
We'll stick with the entrances. Motocross bikes for Cody Rhodes.
I didn't even know he was a big dirt bike guy. It was very strange.
Was.
Unless here's the thing. What's the connection to TKO, Endeavor, UFC, Nick Khan? Is this some sort of Vegas act with the motocross bikes and they're featuring it there?
What they should have done was professional bull riding because TKO has just brought on professional bull riders. So they should have had that. Just 30 seconds of a man being gored. Rhino should have been in.
What they should have done was have, you might as well just squeeze everything in. Have a mini octagon on the one part of the stage where people are doing UFC, and then the other part is the slap fight at the top. And just throw it all in. Get it all in. You should have Colby Covington like mounting guard on another UFC wrestler in the third row trying to get side control. Right? It's a mishmash of, this is NASCAR, and I still hate the mat. That mat is brutal with all the advertisements. It sucks.
Didn't have Prime on it in the middle this time, so I figured that deal's run out, but they still have the Prime hydration station for whatever reason. Anyway, the match itself. Let's just talk about the crowd reaction before we get to the match, because the crowd was doing all the work here. But you know what? Cody was being booed, and then John Cena was being booed. It's like everyone was getting booed, yet everyone really wanted to see the match. It was a very weird reaction. So I don't quite know what people wanted from it, live in the building.
The people just wanted to react, have a good time, boo both of them. They knew they were going to hijack this as far as they did. But I have to say, you have a complaint about this match, and especially the finish. And I guess the overarching theme of that complaint is the pacing and the gears. Mike,
that's not a complaint. That's maybe at the end it was, but at the beginning, I heard other people complaining. I liked the slow pace of it. I liked the Hogan Warrior make every move mean something kind of thing. And a lot of people are just conditioned just to have just explosions and whatever every 4 seconds.
Yeah, I agree with that. I misunderstood what you were saying, because for me, watching all the other stuff, it's good. It's like having candy with the both triple threat matches and even the four-way where all this stuff's going on. I can digest the meal of this main event. I can digest it. And I love the fact they had the three-way match the night before for the main event. This was a drastically different presentation for another. So you had two independent main events that weren't glossing over each other in the same way. I like the fact, I think they should stick with, if you can make some sort of special multi-person match, stipulation match, cage match, night one, and then night two be your standard traditional. This was very much an NWA World Heavyweight title type of wrestling match to me. Very old school, very meaningful, and giving people an idea of how to digest the heel Cena character in a wrestling ring, actually wrestling, because this is literally the first time we're seeing this. So that's why I love the slow pace. We had to identify what John Cena is now and after this match. So definitely great job. But people will think it's boring because it's not. I'm not getting my heart rate up. I'm not doing this and that. No, you just watch the rest of the match. It'll get there, except for one spot you hated.
Super ADD. I think that's everyone's problem, but I like the slow. The thing is, they didn't need to do anything. Do you know why? Because the crowd were going crazy.
Yeah.
Why do you need to do anything else?
I go back to it. This was like, I always use this analogy because last time I saw Cena kind of be a heel was that one night stand against Rob. The fans were every bit as rabid, and there was so many more of them in this stadium. But it reminds me of the atmosphere of Hammerstein Ballroom in a stadium. It was crazy.
Let's talk about Cena's appearance. I know he's not as tanned as he once was. I don't know if that's for filming reasons or what. I don't know if he's not as big as he once was. I know obviously he's pushing 50, but I don't know if he's slimming down also for certain roles. But he didn't come across as I mean, you know, he didn't come across as Super Cena, I guess, in that sense, which is, I mean, he can't be both things. I don't think he can serve both masters. But did you think he just looked a bit old? His hair had suspiciously filled in. I'd noticed that.
I wouldn't say old. And I don't pay attention, even though there is jokes going around. I still say Austin Theory should not have brought that up to Cena because he got eviscerated way back in that promo. It's more so what I said before. It's the opposite of the Rey Mysterio injury. Remember we said the tightrope. What's too little amount of wrestling before you're in a match like this, and what's too much leading into a match like this? Cena's literally, because of his schedule, he even voices over the Honda commercials. When we watch it, I was like, is that Cena? So he's all over, not just in Hollywood and, TV and all that stuff, but he has so many obligations. I don't even know if he's still doing Make-A-Wish. If he's still doing that, he's beyond busy. So when do you have time to get in the ring? And also, with the other stuff that's wearing you down, you can get injured training for the match. And I noticed in the beginning, like with the shoulder block, he wanted to go to the outside, but he kind of waited for Cody, took a little Jim Duggan bump and rolled out, and then other bumps. But when his body got warmed up, he was starting to bump like Cena would as a full-time worker. That ring rust, man, and also ring rust, hitting 50, being on the road, still being on the road for another profession. You're memorizing scripts. You have to do all this different stuff. Now you have to wrestle a main event WrestleMania match, and it just wears you down. The other point was just a more simple wrestling point. Maybe his bump card is finally just about run out, and he doesn't know how much he has left. But, he warmed up. It was the Greg Valentine. He needs 15 to 20 minutes to warm up. When he finally started to warm up and feel his way through the bumps and the ring and everything seemed fine.
Was there a specific turning point in the match where you thought he was easing into it, or did it just become apparent over the course of the match?
Well, it's a lot like working out. When his blood was flowing and he worked up a good sweat and he was breathing easy. In the beginning, it sort of looked like he was still, because John Cena can get nervous. I've never been a heel. What do? I don't wrestle a whole lot. Now, obviously, these thoughts need to be pushed out of the way, like before you get out there. But still, looking around, it is still a little unfamiliar because he hasn't been around for WrestleMania in a while. So I believe that he just needed to be reacclimated into all this, into the entire environment, and he did a great job.
Now, once again, WrestleMania, and it is the WrestleMania main event. I guess I can be, not that it matters, but they started doing the finisher kickouts quite early again, doing the attitude adjustments, so many of them. It still bugs me, even if it's a WrestleMania main event. Maybe like right at the end, it's one thing, but I think people are going to it too early in a match. If you're going to do it, I think people sort of go to that trope too early. Is that me?
Well, I agree with you, but I also agree that the business has changed. And ever since, I'll point out this, Goldberg versus Brock was that Survivor Series where Goldberg just had a flash win over Brock. That became something to dip in and out of creatively in these matches. Now, they didn't necessarily do that, but when they got started, we went into flash finishes type thing, but it turned into false finishes. Like, I'm going to try to beat him out of nowhere with the AA. I'm going to try to beat him out of nowhere with this. Cody's going to hit the crossroads, even to the effect of hitting each other's finishes in some of these main events.
Michael Cole at one point calls John Cena Gina. I just wrote that down because I really liked that as a little note. Travis Scott comes out. Our favourite. I heard reports that when the music started playing, because, I think it was the referee was down at that point, I think, and then, the music started kicking in. Can I also, is it just me, was WrestleMania 41's music the worst WrestleMania music ever? Because, between Travis Scott and The Weeknd, they were two dirt awful songs. Travis Scott comes out. And apparently, the crowd started cheering, because obviously, the music and the lights and everything like that. But when it was only Travis Scott there, and not The Rock, people stopped caring very quickly.
I think the more mysterious thing about that is, where was The Rock? I think we can dedicate an entire segment to that.
He actually posted on Instagram or wherever he posted, "Oh, I'm in Hawaii." And everyone thought he was doing the Becky Lynch thing, or, the obvious thing of, "Oh, I won't be there because obviously I'm in Hawaii." But then apparently The Rock just stayed in Hawaii or wherever he did.
Wow. Yeah, they all tried the swerve of, "I won't be there because I'm already there." That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird, dude, because I thought Rocky would definitely have come out. Like I said, he hadn't done any of those international TVs. He hadn't made an appearance. I'm saying if he's going to come and do anything in collecting souls or anything like that, it's going to be after the finish of this. And I'm sure even up until Cena walking up the ramp, they're like, is Rocky going to be there? So even if Rock said, "I'm in Hawaii," and you might think, well, that cost a lot of pay-per-view buys, people think they were being swerved, paid for it, and then didn't see him. How do you feel? Do you think people would ask for a refund if he wasn't there? He's been a big part.
They never said he would be though, so they'd never get anywhere. But someone might try it.
But you know what I'm saying? He's still a draw, even not wrestling. Well, he's going to be there. Something cool's going to happen. I don't know what happened. That's a weird, because you can't say he's in trouble with the office or he's at odds with the office, because he is the office. He's on the chair. He's on the board. Like $30 million and $7 to be on the board of TKO.
But the thing is, Travis Scott is not the reason that John Cena turned bad guy. The Rock is. He instigated it all. So why, after Elimination Chamber, has he been completely AWOL since? I don't get it. What's he doing? He didn't even film anything on his phone to send in.
That is the biggest question going in and out of WrestleMania, is where's this guy been and why wasn't he there? Well, we got Travis Scott, so you can name me 3 Travis Scott songs, because I couldn't name you one.
If that one that goes, he, that went all the way through WrestleMania 41 for 2 nights. Travis Scott walks down. Nobody reacted to him because obviously they thought The Rock was coming. Yeah. People reacted to him initially, and then they thought The Rock was coming.
He got your favorite belt too, the new WWE Hardcore belt.
Oh, goodness me, that's disgraceful. Anyway, one thing we have found out is that Travis Scott takes a better Crossroads than John Cena.
Isn't that something? Are we going to do the what went right for that?
Yeah, you might as well do it now.
Let's do it. And by the way, Travis Scott takes a better Crossroads than I would too. So nothing different there. We one of our most popular, for whatever reason, Travis Scott, or one of our most popular videos in general, is the Travis Scott video in a negative sense. So we should get just as much polarizing opinions on this. But this is better than most of the workers take it, although I will walk through it. I will break it down step by step. It wasn't the tightest. It wasn't technically in the beginning the best Crossroads, but he took a really good one. So Travis tries to slap him. Cody does the interlace.
He really does try and slap him as well.
What's that?
He really does try and slap him as well. You've seen how much of a swing he had.
Yeah, he swung through. So this is him right here. Now this is where it was. I want to say this. For people that are saying, well, he didn't get into it real clean. I'm going to tell you right now, if you're not used to it and not so flexible, Travis Scott has never cooperated with a move before. He might have rehearsed this. You got to pretty much arch your body back while your feet are flat. So you're here and your body's here, kind of like this, in that shape. So obviously, Cody might have told him, but he forgot right here. See all the space right there? That space right there, Cody should front face lock him a little tighter. That's where I think it could go wrong. But watch Travis Scott. This arm around here, this arm, even cupping the elbow in the back of the tricep. So he's already doing, I see guys just hanging there. You got to tighten up, hold your core in, and resist Cody so he can turn you for the crossroads. He did a great job with that. See right here? It's very loose. This is what scared me. He should literally be in Cody's armpit right there. So whatever happened, it turned out really well. That's about it, the best crossroads you can take right there. He spun over. He put the one hand down to brace him, and he took a flat bump. Look, Cody protected him, but he also, dude, look, he ate it. He took it like a champ. It does.
His hands bent back as well. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
On that brain pause.
Definitely. No, that's Cody's hand. His hand's right there on, behind Watch on Demand. But
you know, because John Cena took the crossroads, I think, and a lot of people who take it wrong basically land on Cody's chest, so they don't get over enough.
Yeah, but he landed on his chest too. You got to think about it too. Travis Scott weighs about $150, so he can clear Cody this way very easily. But this is maybe he had a spine infection. Who knows? But just this, like, watch this. Just for Travis Scott to do that motion, looking up, backwards, feet flat, body kind of flexed with isometrics, and turn himself. He could have very easily just landed on top of Cody's head and not offered any assistance whatsoever. This is one of the best crossroads, not only for a non-wrestling talent, but it's top 50% of wrestling talents taking it. No talent, I'm going to tell you right now, no talent I know outside of maybe Bubba Ray Dudley and other people can consistently take a great face bump or face, chest, stomach bump. I can't do it. And when you're talking about looking up, turning, and Cody's got to plant you into there and you're just flying and you're not familiar with it, that's a big deal. So I give Travis Scott credit. Maybe they lucked out. Maybe this was the good take. Or maybe he really put something into it to make sure. Maybe he was at WrestleMania all week, maybe a couple days rehearsing with Cody. So,
well, they say he was training to be a wrestler before this.
Before he became a singer?
Well, no, I mean after that.
Oh, you mean when TKO
took for a short while.
When TKO took over, he was one of those people like Logan Paul that wanted to get into the business. So he started training to try to get like crossover like that.
I don't know. I don't know if they did the crossover appearances first and then he started training. I don't know what it is, but apparently he's had a tiny bit of training anyway. But I don't know. He'd have to be in the minis division. Needs to bring that back.
But I think he did a great job with it, and it's what went right. It really is. And the whole match in itself, even though you feel like some pacing towards the end was really slow, this match was what went right too.
Let's just stick with Travis Scott then. Did WWE, that's the thing that I'm really wondering here, did WWE think that Travis Scott was more popular or more integral to this overarching storyline than he actually was? Because once again, I mean, yeah, the Crossroads was good, it looked good and everything, but when he walked down to the ring without The Rock, it was painfully obvious that there's some sort of miscommunication there, or some sort of misguided idea that somehow Travis Scott was more important to this than The Rock was. Or not, maybe not that, but he would be an adequate substitute, which he isn't. How could he be?
I don't have the answer to that. I don't know why, unless somebody just likes Travis Scott music. Travis Scott is Travis Scott signed to, what is it, CAA? That's what Ari Emanuel used to run, that agency for actors, for musicians, for singers. They're tied into that. So Ari Emanuel used to be an agent for many of the stars that we're seeing here.
Let's talk about the end of the match then. So I don't know if it was me, but it just seemed to slow to a glacial pace at the end. And then there was like a logic break for me that John Cena brought the belt in after the referee was downed. I don't know if it was the first or second time. Chad Patton. And he brings the belt in, and then Cody gets the belt off him. And then there's like a minute of Cena sort of like begging off, and then Cody wondering whether he should hit them with the belt, the moral quandary. And it's almost like Will Ospreay, should he do the Tiger Driver 91 or should he not do the Tiger Driver 91? And then one time he just wouldn't, and it was a moral quandary. And then the next time it was no problem at all, and he just did it. Why is Cody having a moral quandary over this? Because you even say himself, he's a heel. Cena's wronged him. What's the problem?
I don't get the problem at this point, especially with the Cena turn, kicking him. He kicked him at the end of this as well, before winning from the belt shot. I don't know. I don't know why this makes Cody look incredibly weak and incredibly naive. Like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. It's got to be shame on Cody, right? So this is what I say, like, this here did a lot of good, but where does Cody go? Cena, we know where Cena goes from here, because you got to finish the story at the end of the year. I still believe the finish of this too. Cena's going to be a babyface again sooner rather than later. If Rock ever shows up to interact with Cena, what if Rock never shows up again? This thing is dead in the water. So now you got Cody getting back to him. You really got to take care of this guy. He just had a run as champion. He represented the company very well. And that could be enough for Cody to want to turn heel. But then we got Cena turn heel. Rollins just turned. Now Cody's we're going to have a reverse elimination chamber from ECW December to Dismember with too many heels.
Cena becomes the 17-time world champion, breaking Ric Flair's record, which isn't actually 16, it's 23, but in WWE canon, he breaks the record. This isn't me, or did they not really make that big of a deal about John Cena winning? It was sort of, he won, there were no fireworks, they mentioned it briefly, and then it's off the air. It didn't seem like it. I don't think they were rushing either, because night 2 was actually shorter than night 1. So what do you think of the closing moments?
It's part of Cena's lack of presentation and lack of excitement in that dark entrance. I liked it. You have to interpret it, but Cena wins the title. And remember when he cut the promo? No new music, no new T-shirts, it's not the new me or anything like that. As a matter of fact, it's going to be subverted and it's going to be toned down. That's a heel. I think Cena's very much an old school wrestling fan. That's an old school thing. As a matter of fact, Cena for a bit probably was saying, I don't want to come out to music at all. That would be take every bit of the air out of the building as a heel. That's what WWE does so well, that you're looking saying, why there's no pyro? Why no big on the stage pyro outside and inside the stadium? Because he's a heel. He's not celebrating this with the fans. Put the belt on, walk out. I'm going to celebrate with myself. That's what I got out of it. Does that make sense now?
Yeah. He celebrated with Travis Scott as well. One last thing, and then we'll shut down the show. Should John Cena have done the turn at WrestleMania instead of Elimination Chamber, as was apparently the original creative?
Wow. So you're saying, like, match starts between, this is what I see, match starts between Cody and Cena, wrestle around a little bit, maybe they give him a little bit of the babyface, so you're not going home right away. Then he just kicks him right in the nuts, hits him with the belt and pins him. Like, it just flash finish a little bit. You give him a little bit of the wrestling. I do it right off the bat, but people might not like that. Like, the shake hands, kicking the nuts, pick him up, hit him with the finish, 1, 2, 3. That would get people talking. That is an interesting question. Wow. What would that look like? Because I guarantee you, I guarantee you after WrestleMania, even more places would pick up John Cena heel turn, title win, Now we're off to the races with Cody's reaction. And we don't get Travis Scott.
Let's assume everything's the same, but you still get a 20, 25-minute match between Cody and John Cena, but then the whole shebang happens with The Rock coming out and Travis Scott coming out and John Cena, etc. Let's say you work it into the match.
Let me ask you this. I'm thinking of a third option. What about if, as the people, Cena's white meat babyface going into WrestleMania, cheering on, doing all that stuff, they do the dual chants, doesn't bother him when he comes out. They do the dual chants, or the chants turn into anti-Cena chants mostly. He starts to sell it a little bit and a little bit more. You start to see the cracks come through, the frustration, and Cody's out wrestling him. Then Cena shines on Cody, no heat spot, doesn't cheat, just gets over on him. They start booing. Then Cena starts to get a little more aggressive, but not in a heel sense. Then towards the end, the choice comes up, and Cena looks like he's not going to take it, turns to Cody, and then takes the choice, takes selling his soul to Rocky and wins the title. You're kind of teasing it, but the teasing it is not telegraphing it, because you're like, there's no way Cena's going to turn heel. That I wish it worked out with him turning at WrestleMania. Now that I think about it, it would be awesome.
Just before we shut down this show, so I guess this is sort of the beginning of the outro. We're not doing all the Patreon stuff. Obviously, this is just one brief special. But before we start recording, I posted something on our YouTube community board and just mentioned we're doing a WrestleMania special. I just want to read out a few of the top comments. The first one is, fingers crossed we get a whiteboard presentation of when Stone Cold Steve Austin ran his ATV into the barrier. Your wish was our command. Well done. Involving that moron in the main event's finish made this the worst finish in Mania history. I'm presuming they mean Travis Scott, I think they mean. Dark Lord of the Sith says they humiliate the War Raiders. Martin Brophy says Austin is ATV. Lexi Santos, Triple H said that Mania doesn't necessarily have to have to be the end of a storyline, but the beginning of something new. And then
New
he
Triple
says,
H
sure as hell
belts. That's
better
what
have
it
had an
is.
end.
New Triple H.
It should have been. Here we go. WrestleMania was a complete joke with all their MAGA celebrities. Triple H, horrible booking. Who the F is Travis Scott? So a lot of people really unhappy with Travis Scott. Striking while the iron is hot. Yes, we are. While I understand that they did in terms of storylines, this show felt very lackluster and dry with very few exceptions. Can't wait to watch what you and hear your take. Heck yeah, fellas. Haven't got a pay-per-view in years. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Let me get my glasses on. Bear with me. This was more like Ad Mania. Holy crap, not even a single backstage segment. That's a good point.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I didn't mention that.
Oh, man.
Not a single promo, not a single backstage segment. I thought that was very weird. Only picked up on that too, that.
I just picked up on that. Hey, by the way, they got their quota beyond their quota during all the TVs with backstage. We were due to not have any, but you had said before, they would just get to the match, get to the next match, and that's kind of what they did. You had said in past WrestleManias you liked that they just win. Now, obviously, they had filler with the entrances and the in between with Shawn and ATV,
and celebrities and stuff like
attacks and everything like that.
Yeah. I'm just looking at it. Lexi Santos says easily one of the weakest hype manias and poorly executed. Jey looking like Jeff Hardy before the Sting match. Okay. Gunther tapping out of his own submission. Logan a part-timer getting put over. Paul Heyman with the predictable swerve. Bianca. I don't think predictable is a bad thing for the most part. And once again, I'll copy what Dutch says and just say, you know what, promise something and then give it to me. Slap me in the face with it. I don't think predictable is bad for the most part. Triple Threat ladies match. The whole event was dire. There's a lot of people down on WrestleMania, at least who watch our show. Let me see if there's anything else. Good to hear it was bad. Figured it was going to be, but I was also thinking about watching. Glad I didn't miss anything. David. Well, the thing is, there was plenty good on it as well. I mean, that's why I don't know about you, Stevie, but I think it was in the middle. Oh, we didn't do Guerrillas, by the way. John Cena and Cody Rhodes.
5. Man, it would have been beyond the 5 if the alternate way to book it would have happened that we just talked about. My God. Now I want to repeat my criteria too, because those comments, they make excellent points. I think it stands by what I said, or it speaks true to what I said, that all year long, the production, the level of pyro, everything feels like a big fight feel each and every week on TV. So that takes some of the special kind of presentation away from WrestleMania. All the ads, the sponsorships, it's NASCAR. I already mentioned that. But my criteria for these matches, why you think, or people might think I rated it way too high, is because of the business hopefully it will create for everybody that's involved with the matches, which I feel like is every bit, like Triple H was right. It doesn't mean the end of something and then starting something brand new on Monday. It means a continuation or a different pivot or a turn, or you got the fork in the road and the choice from there. So I agree with him there. You know, there has to be some periods on that, but not all need to be the closing chapter of every storyline.
One more, I can't even read the username. Genuinely confused as to why so many people on the internet hating the show. I was there in person and everyone there shared the same feelings that this was overall a solid show. Also saying night 2 was better than night 1. Night 1 better than night 2. I thought night 2's undercard was far better. It's almost like if you put the first half of night 2 with the second half of night 1 somehow, for the most part, you would have had a great WrestleMania. But I don't know. Yeah, which night did you prefer?
Well, I'd probably have to say that both nights were equally good. Now, here's the thing. You got 2 nights. You have to make them special. Not every match is going to be a hit with everybody, you know, but you have enough to go around. It's a variety show. As who had said it's a variety show? Oh, Edge. About the bat with the spikes. I don't mean it like that. Let's use a different term. Not that kind of variety show. But, and you had a bunch of segments that did fit in that variety show. I remember that segment. But I think overall, the weekend as a whole, with the matches and the way it came together as a whole presentation, was super solid. You're not going to have everything speak to everybody like that. So some people might hate the Cody Cena match because it was too slow and prefer Punk, Rollins, and Reigns with the kind of car crash pace. So I would say probably because the bookend, and this is the tough part, because the bookend of both nights was really good. The first and the last match of both nights were really, really good. But I would probably have to give the edge. Good Lord, that's hard. You know, just by the fact of the escalation of the weekend, night 2 is going to have more attention. But I have to lean towards night 1.
A fine conclusion.
What do you think? Can't get away with it.
I think 2 was better.
Okay.
Just from bounding through the night and everything like that. And to be honest, I kind of liked the main event of night 2 better than night 1, just because night 1 was so predictable. I don't know, I said predictability's fine and everything, but it's like it's a triple threat match where they start doing the finish on each other in 10 minutes, and it's like,
yeah, but wasn't Cena predictable? Cena was going to
win? They did the same thing, but
okay.
I just like the crowd doing more into it, and it just felt like a bigger thing. What can I say? Right, okay, I'll do the outro for that. Everybody, thank you so much for watching the Stevie Richards Show special WWE WrestleMania 41 review. This is by far the longest show we've ever done. We've gone well over 3 hours here, so hopefully it was thorough, quite frankly, for everybody's tastes. And we will be back with our regular episode. It'll be episode 43 of the Stevie Richards Show, which will probably feature a lot of news and a lot of fallout from WrestleMania 41, including, if you can, I don't know what the best way to do this is. Maybe put in the comments of this episode your thoughts of WrestleMania, anything that we've missed that you'd like Stevie to talk about or analyze or whatever it might be, or anything including what was on Raw the next night or tonight as we record this anyway. And until then, we will catch you on Friday for episode 43. It is 43, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. We'll catch you on episode 43 on Friday, all the usual podcast platforms and on YouTube. We'll see you then. Aha.